Andy, what are your thoughts on jazz festivals?
Yes, so this is an apropos question because I just mentioned to Amelia the Rochester National Jazz Fest started 2 days ago here as we record, and so my local indie theater is like right in the heart of where all that is. So like when I went to see Asteroid City, I did not realize that like, oh, there's gonna be like street closures and like it's gonna be hard to find parking because of the jazz festival.
And they're gonna be selling ribs in the parking lot.
Yes, and they were selling ribs in the parking lot. So I pre-ordered pizza and then was like, oh, I should have just gotten the ribs in the parking lot. But my thoughts on jazz festivals in general, they're fun. There's like, especially like here, like they really like, there's a lot of music everywhere. Like there's a lot of outdoor shows. There's a lot of like free stuff. I don't really make it a point to attend a ton of stuff in general when it's happening. Usually, it used to be when when I was younger and living with my family, we'd all go out to some free shows and stuff. But now that I'm living like right around the corner from where it is, maybe I will go wander around and see some stuff.
What are your thoughts on jazz?
Jazz, like, it's not like I'm never drawn to like listen to like real jazz. Like, it's not something where I'm like, oh, like I'm getting all out of this that like a person is able to get out of it. Like I don't feel super capable of like fully appreciating jazz, but I certainly do like respect it and think it's like, it's obviously like an incredibly important American art form.
Yeah.
Like,
I guess I also don't know what the like character of the Rochester Jazz Festival is, because I feel like there's some jazz festivals where it's like only jazz, all jazz, and somewhere it's that. Like
there's
they
like I think they had like a Steve Martin show at one year, like with his banjo. Like I think Bonnie Raitt's one of the big shows this year that's sold out. Like it's not like pure jazz artists, although there's I think plenty of actual jazz at the various venues. Trombone Shorty is always a big does a big free show every year. Outdoors.
I went to the Foo Fighters did a big July 4th show at RFK Stadium once that Trombone Shorty was on the bill for. That was a crazy bill. That's why I've seen LL Cool J live in concert.
Quelques exemples. Fellini, Buñuel, Scorsese, Coppola, Tornatore, Kusturica, Lynch, Wenders, Chen Kaige, Campion, Wong Kar-wai, Tarantino, Kassovitz, Benigni, Les Dardennes, Moretti, Haneke, Noé, Loach, Malik, Audiard, Gavone, Sorrentino, Maïwen, Dolan, et tant d'autres.
Welcome to Can I Kick It? This is a podcast about film festivals. My name is Jesse Catherine Weber, and I'm joined by
Andy Germuga,
Colin Ashley,
Emilio Diaz.
What is this?
That's fine. That's allowed, I feel.
I thought that you were gonna yodel like people might do in Asteroid City.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Dwight.
That would have been cool.
Yeah. That's what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about Asteroid City. You just heard the dulcet tones of our guest Jack Reed.
Hi.
Returning champion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How's it going? What is this? What number is this for me?
That's an interesting question.
We definitely discussed this the last time you were here, I feel like.
Yeah.
Right.
I feel like once you
bag.
show up, you have to. I feel like once you've been on a number of times, any show you have to.
Right.
Palm Springs, Manktacular, Sundance 2021, Power of the Dog, Allison Williams. Six. Wow.
Rarefied air.
I think
what an honor it is for you to be back on Can I Kick It?
Sorry, I said. Did I sound? I probably sound really tired compared to past.
Yeah, there's been a big life change for Jack since last time he was on that we don't have to discuss, but yeah,
we can. That's normal. But it's
you're now taking care of of Lou Reed. Can we say
Yeah,
that?
yeah, you can say yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's funny. For a while, I was not gonna like say his name anywhere, like on Twitter, or whatever. But I was like, I have no sort of like presence. I don't care about this.
Sure.
So yeah, I'm taking care of a baby to whom I am father. And he's great. I'm actually in his nursery right now. He's not here. But
he's banned. He's not allowed on the podcast.
He's not. No, he would. Y'all. He's crawling. Well, he's not crawling. He's like any day now. But we've been saying any day now for a while. But he couldn't be here. At one point, maybe he could have, like a couple months ago. But he is now really into making this sound like like over and over again. So he is not in the house right now. But his nursery used to be my office. My home office, and now it's his nursery. But it's good because, as was pointed out before the record, he has a big cactus on the wall, which felt very apropos for Asteroid City. So this cactus is right behind me.
In a year, you're gonna have to be like, all right, bud, we're taking down the cactus and putting up a ninja so that we can talk about Vineland.
In a year? You think it's coming out in a year?
Yeah, that's pretty,
There's a lot of problems with what Jesse just said.
I don't think that's.
I
don't
dead
think
ass
that's
had
coming out in
zero
a year or
idea
two.
where Ninjas was gonna take.
I had to think for like a second. I was like,
when we do our Chris Farley miniseries.
Yeah. When we do, Christmas. But we had Jack on for Black Sheep. Oh no.
the cactus motif.
I mean, there's gonna be a huge revelation when we do Christmas.
Yeah.
Gargantuan.
Thanks for having me back, guys, for a movie that
welcome.
I
So glad to
really
have you.
love a lot. So much that I took time out of my life being a dad to go see it a second time last night because I.
Hell yeah. A lot of folks doing that. A lot of folks doing round two.
I also saw it a second time last night.
Yeah.
It's quite a movie.
It is.
Maybe we can leave our little break here because I think we're gonna have to cut in with our first little bit of TIFF news and maybe some other stuff.
The film festival analysis you come to this podcast for.
All right, we're here for the promised news update. We said that we would have some stuff from TIFF. We've got a little more, but let's just start with the one that is relevant to the topic at hand, which is that later on in this episode, you will hear our guest, Jack Reed, who is not with us at the moment, say that Wes Anderson's next film will be a father-daughter film starring Michael Cera. And that was close. Michael Cera is in it, and it is a father-daughter film. But Anderson, I believe later that day, did an interview where he said that Benicio del Toro is the lead of the film and will be in every shot, I think he said.
Yeah.
It's also like a spy thing, and he was like, it's weirdly dark for me. So, I don't know. Interesting.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
In every shot of it,
It's crazy.
sounds a little crazy.
Yeah, we'll see what that means.
It's like in Asteroid City, there's that guy with the hat and the sunglasses. He's in like every shot too.
Sure, yeah.
Maybe there'll be some split screen.
We, I don't know if, I think Jack did also say, and I don't know if I'm blowing up his spot, that Sarah is the villain.
Whoa, I didn't hear this.
I believe that's what he said.
That's really good.
Yeah.
That'll be great.
Yeah. But now we've got our first announcement for the 2023 Toronto International Film Festival. Maybe I'll just start by saying, Andy's not here, and this might be a slightly different discussion if he were, but certainly for me, these early announcements, which they did last year, it was like 2 or 3 a week, and it went on for way too long, and we got sick of the eyes emojis. They're not for me. I did not see a single movie that was announced early at the festival last
Do you remember what they were at all?
Yeah, I mean, some of them were
The
good.
first one was...
The Fablemans was the last
Sure,
one.
sure,
And
sure,
so,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
that was...
right.
Maybe they'll save a big thing for last.
Something
and, like,
good,
there are
yeah.
other good movies. Like, the first one last year was Glass Onion, which I did end up thinking was
Sure.
pretty good. Catherine Called Birdie was also towards the end, which is the
Sure,
one
right.
that I, like, was trying to fit into my schedule but didn't.
But yeah, this is
Yeah.
this is how they draw their crowd.
Yes, which all that is to say, their first announcement is Next Goal Wins, the long-delayed Taika Waititi film starring Michael Fassbender, shot like years before he made
2019?
Thor 4. Yeah, it's like...
Yeah. Well,
which,
originally
you know,
shot with Armie Hammer.
of course, who was
Instead of
replaced
Will
by
Arnett.
Will Arnett, which is a really funny pivot. And yeah, I can't imagine seeing this movie ever. I can't imagine it will be good, but like also they have the world premiere of it, and Taika Waititi is one of a very short list of like celebrity directors. So
Anyone, People's Choice
yeah.
for Jojo Rabbit.
So, like, whether or not the movie ends up being received well, which is pretty iffy at this point,
Sure.
undeniably, I think, I don't want to say a coup, because I doubt that, like, even Telluride and certainly not Venice were, like, fighting for this movie, but, like, it's what they want, and it will do what they want for them, I'm sure. And there will be plenty of other announcements that are more exciting for people who are not excited by this one. I believe July 19th is the date for getting all of the galas and special presentations, or at least the bulk of them, and then they are generally on an earlier schedule this year because we're gonna have a schedule on August 15th, which is like a week and a half before usual. So that'll be nice, and we will I guess we'll need to have a discussion about, like, do we wait to record until they've done all their announcements every week, or do we just allow ourselves to be behind? Because was it actually worth not recording until now to talk about Next Goal Wins?
But maybe I guess it depends on the movie,
right?
Because
I guess
if there is something Fableman's
then
caliber,
I mean, we'll probably do what we, just be like, well, there'll be a lot of like, then maybe something else, and then we might cut in, or we might just not, I don't know if this is interesting. We probably could have talked about this off mic. But anyway, I do have, and this will relate to an episode that we'll be recording soon and will be out in a couple weeks, where we'll start.
I think I know what this is.
Huh?
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, we're going to start... we're going to do a more in-depth preview of what Venice looks like soon, but a little update on some of those potential titles, which I suppose I'll have to flag for Andy just so that he's not unduly uninformed on some of the options when we get to the draft that we'll be doing. But we'll start... let's see. So I've got 3 things that there's been somewhat of an update on. Christy Pui's film MMXX had a surprise premiere at the Transylvania International Film Festival a couple weeks ago. Yeah, he's of course the director of Malmkrog, Sierra Nevada, highly anticipated film. That is in Romania, so even if it didn't have the like surprise element, it would not necessarily take it out of the conversation to premiere at Venice. Not that I necessarily would have expected it in competition anyway. He was I think we've talked about many times, he was almost on the jury in 2020 and then was not because he is not a fan of masks. I had seen that this was going to happen. I just saw someone tweet like, "Oh, it's they're surprised putting out the Christy Puyu film," but then nothing popped up on letterboxd, so I was like, "Oh, maybe this is just a festival that like no one goes to, or maybe no one saw it." But then I realized that letterboxd has been keeping the reviews off of the main page. So there are, if you look, there are several reviews and some ratings, mostly in English. And it's about what you would expect for a Christy Puyu film. Some big fans, some people who think it's boring as shit. I will be seated whenever I have the opportunity. Lucretia Martel, who gave an interview with the Film Stage, had a few comments about the infamous Joker win. Also,
I was just gonna say that it's funny that it's been a topic of conversation for so long that she picked Joker out of spite or whatever, and her talking about whatever Black Widow was the one she was supposed to direct and talking about that it sounded bad.
Right.
Really
She's
funny.
like, the Marvel movies, they all sound awful. She was like, I watched one on a plane and was shocked by how awful it sounded.
Yeah.
Yeah. Supposed to direct is how the interview framed it. I don't think that's accurate. She was one of 30 people who they brought in.
She took a meeting.
My memory. But yeah, it was also funny. She was like, "Oh yeah, I mean, cheap streaming B movies will absolutely go out to Latin American directors all the time because they think they get them to work for cheap. I probably could have made a cheap Amazon movie or whatever if I wanted to."
Yeah.
But anyway, she did also provide a brief update on Chocobar, the documentary that she's been working on forever, which was basically just I'm still working on it, it's not done yet, which makes me assume we will not see it this year yet again. And then Frederick Wiseman, we've been tracking that it's been a big 12 months for documentaries in competition and thinking about who might be able to make a splash at Venice. He's perhaps one of the obvious people, has been in Venice competition, was last year with a couple, his fiction-ish film, but has also been in competition with documentaries. And the restaurant movie now has a release date in France for December, so presumably that means will be premiering in the fall, not necessarily at Venice and not necessarily in competition. I think the last few movies have... I think Ex Libris is the only recent documentary that was in competition, and then, he's been out of competition, he's premiered at Telluride, I think, maybe TIFF, so plenty of options on the table there, and perhaps not the only documentary that...
Where does Frederick Wiseman live?
I believe he lives in Paris now.
Sure.
For a good amount, I think he's been there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how long he's spent in the States previously when he was shooting documentaries here, but yeah. And then I wrote... What else did I want to talk about? Let's just one more thing. I do have a take, also prompted by a little bit of news that slipped under the radar. I can't even remember if we mentioned. I was vaguely aware that Neon had acquired Eileen, the William Oldroyd film with Thomasin McKenzie and Anne Hathaway that premiered at Sundance, and they announced it's going to be released December 1st and wide December 8th. And my take is, under no circumstances should a Sundance movie ever be released after the summer.
That's funny.
I think just never. Why would you do that? Initially, when I wrote this down, I was going to say, unless you think it will get nominated for Oscars, but I don't even think, if it's actually, like, that happens so rarely that, like, if it actually has that juice, it will just happen. Like, I think Past Lives very well that probably will be the Sundance movie that has a little bit of energy at the Oscars, and they put that out this month, and A24 is doing their weird platform, no one knows when they're gonna get to see it thing. But I think it will last into the fall just fine. People are digging it.
People are definitely seeing it and enjoying it.
And also, like, Eileen is not gonna be an Oscar thing under any circumstances, whether they release it in, December or August. It's silly. Like, you're gonna it is there's already, like, the movies that are for adults are all coming out in the fall.
Passages.
Right, I just mean, like, if you have one that is a Sundance movie, then, like, you've been out for a while, just get it out there while the field is not as crowded, and hope that people see it then.
Yeah.
I guess here might be a possible exception to the rule you just made, but as we talked about in the past, Sundance is a big place for horror movies. Which, they typically like to come around Halloween.
That's a reasonable exception. If you've got a big... I mean, I don't know. Like, some of those have done well in the spring. Like, Hereditary.
Sure, like, I think
June. Yeah. But yes, if you feel like you've got a big Halloween thing, then, like, sure, do that. And, like, I feel like the big horror thing this year was A24 had... is it Talk to Me or whatever?
Oh,
one
sure,
that the
yes.
YouTubers did. Like, that's coming out in July, so you can, but the summer is also a perfectly fine time to put out a horror movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I generally agree with you, where it's like, I feel like every year we go through, like, what's happening to, like, art house distribution or, like, art house theaters, like, but it's also every year... Every single art house movie comes out within a 3-month span, and then the rest of the year there's nothing. And it's like, sure, of course these are gonna be, like, weirdly dying if nobody wants to put out movies for 9 months a year. You just gotta put them out.
And, like, again, I think we've talked about, like, I think there are distributors that are starting to be more adventurous about this. We're gonna see Passages in August. A Fire is coming out in July. We'll see how Janice does with that. Something that I feel like is maybe a little, like, a Petzold movie maybe doesn't need the slow burn that they've been doing as much as, like, EO or No Bears or, like, Drive My Car. That worked really well for. I feel like a Petzold movie you maybe just throw out a little faster. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, like, Sunday, it is just, like, it seems so silly, because, like, it's not like they're even stopped being American independent movies. Like, those premiere at TIFF, too. Like, just get them off your hands before these other festivals happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess, well... Not even, because I was going to say maybe there's a world where Neon is aware of everything that will be at, like, TIFF and Venice, and they're just like, there's nothing there, so we just need a late year thing. But they also have the Palme d'Or winner and the Grand Prix winner. So it's like they have other movies.
Yeah. which, you know, because they're neon, those might be like 10 people will see them in December, and then no one else will see them until February. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Neon's really they're a mess. I feel like A24 is like starting to get it back together, even though the actual release rollouts are like a little stop and starty. Like they're feeling a little bit less like incoherent than they were a year, even 6 months ago. Neon's like, what are we doing here?
I mean, A24 is just like, it is clear with them, the movies
Right.
that they think will
Yes.
make money and we're going to pull our full force behind. And then there are the
Yeah.
movies which
And it
they
doesn't
do
always
not.
work. Like, they tossed out Beau is Afraid
No.
into 1,000 theaters or whatever, and that pretty much got rejected. What a Yeah. silly movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy that they did that for that movie. Yeah.
Still
I
have
mean,
not seen.
It's worth We
a
don't even
look.
talk about... Yeah. I respect it, certainly. Yeah.
I mean, I'll watch
I
it at some
respect
point.
it much more
certainly.
than I respect his other movies. But it's pretty silly. But yeah, that...
I mean, I feel like Eight Mountains had like some juice relative to what
think
Eight Mountains
so.
is
That picked up a little bit, because that was...
for
No,
Neon.
Eight Mountains
and
was
last
Janice.
That was Janice? Okay, sure. What's their most recent Neon thing? I guess I have
don't
no
even-
idea.
Neon.
No. I'll look it up.
Okay, should not have just
Yep.
Googled Neon.
Classic.
Yeah.
8 Mountains has...
Black Pipeline.
Oh,
yeah,
sure,
yeah, yeah.
that was a little
Which
bit...
I guess
have
Sanct-
no
also,
concept of if that made money or not. I don't... Or like what type
Yeah, that
of,
one is like-
uh,
that
impression
like
it
April or
made.
whatever?
If-
It was April.
Yeah,
They put
that-
out Sanctuary.
that was like I heard
which was,
about
like,
that one a
No,
lot.
playing
yes,
around.
But these are both
and,
like TIFF movies that
right.
they just sat on for like half a year.
Yeah.
Or whatever. It's like they
Yes.
could have got those out earlier.
Yeah.
They could have got them out last year and like
yeah.
Infinity Pool.
Pacifiction.
Pacifiction's Grasshopper.
Grasshopper,
That's,
of course.
Yeah.
Sure. They have an Old Boy re-release that I think
Yeah, that's
is that right
coming
now?
out. That's
is that out now?
August is the plan for that.
That's August. Sure.
But yeah, I don't know. No.
Yeah, I guess I don't know what they're up to, but
Yeah,
they
they've
have
got
a, lot
a bunch
movies,
of, you know, they picked out a bunch of canned stuff. They've got, like we said, the Trier and they also have Rohrbacher, and
Yeah.
we'll see. I think, yeah,
Well,
we will see.
when did Triangle of Sadness come out last year? Like
October.
sure.
So yeah, I guess there must be something that they will give that like a like more like firm like fall. People will see it before the year is over, and then
Maybe it's Anatomy of a
So-
Fall.
yeah, it could be that could get that slot.
Maybe.
'Cause-
Moon Age Daydream felt like something that they were trying hard to push, and I don't know if that was successful at all.
Yeah, I can probably just say that I was at a screening at TIFF where there were people who worked at Neon sitting behind me, and they were so mad that after a week the Avatar re-release was going to take IMAX screens away from Moon Age Daydream. They were
That's
like,
funny.
come on, this could play for weeks and be a huge IMAX hit.
That's really funny.
Because
Because they played it on the big whatever, like the Cinesphere. Is that what it's
I
called?
think so, yeah.
They played
TIFF.
that, and they also played Us last year, or Nope last year.
Yeah, with
Um,
they had Peel there and someone
Maybe on
else
the big
maybe.
one.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like we will certainly be curious to see what TIFF looks like. I guess the other thing I had written down is it is just like it'll be interesting to see like what other world premieres they get. Like there isn't like a big get like Fablemans this year for anyone really. Like the closest thing is probably Dune 2, which the buzz there I feel like there have been a few articles in like Variety and other places saying like they maybe want to do a festival premiere, but not super early, which I assume means it'll be like in that NIF spotlight. Like the first one was.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess considering the release date, the get was Killers of the Flower Moon,
right?
And Cannes got it instead of all of the fall festivals getting it.
And like, we'll see if like there's even jockeying for like who gets the North American premiere of that. Like, I would bet New York. Just cause right, I wouldn't be surprised if it's like the opening film at New York, but they just seem to care much less about premiere status, and I would imagine that we'll be heading even further in that direction now that it's just Dennis Lim and not Eugene Hernandez. But like last year it was like White Noise was a North American premiere, but that could very well just be because like Netflix had no interest in taking it to TIFF, and then like All the Beauty and the Bloodshed played everywhere before it was the centerpiece, and The Inspection was a Discovery premiere at Toronto. So like it seems like it's more like they don't necessarily care about it for those slots. Like they ended up with world premieres of Till and She Said, but they just like threw those into the spotlight section, which makes sense for them to just keep doing. Of like, if a studio feels like it's easier to just like hold the premiere until a little later, do it in New York. Like, sure, you can have a spotlight. And like, if David Fincher is like, I want to premiere The Killer as the opening film again, like I did with Gone Girl, I wouldn't imagine that they'll say no. Yeah. But it seems like we're past the like a few big movies hold out for one of those gala slots.
I feel like the Fincher might be the get this year, but that just feels like a Venice movie.
Right, it's kind of the get, but also like I could see that movie just being like low key and like just like showing up on Netflix and people being like, yeah, that's all right. Like I wonder what a film festival reception to Mank would have been.
I guess this one to me is just like, it seems like a return to form of just like what people want from David Fincher. So I guess it's
action. Yeah, but like more in the like girl with the dragon tattoo way than like the ones that have been like huge like even more than that than like Gone Girl, but like certainly more than like Zodiac or Social Network, which are like the ones that like feel like big deals. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe we can have more of a discussion about like what those gala slots at New York might look like, what other world premieres TIFF might be getting. Like I think they'll still do fine, and then like what the big Hollywood things I mean, like I get it is kind of Netflix, because I feel like Maestro could be the other like that's kind of a get, and I could see that going in a lot of. Yeah, like it's easy. I can certainly imagine TIFF kind of pulling out all the spots. Well, yeah, I can also imagine Venice being like, "We'll put you in competition this time." But then there's also been some buzz that they've been like testing it a bunch of times and it doesn't really work. So we'll see.
Maybe I was gonna say also New York Film Festival has the argument of we could premiere it at the halls in which Leonard Bernstein used to play.
Yeah, there's lots of also like Telluride will be feisty this year because it's their 50th anniversary or something like that, and they added an extra day. They're gonna, so we'll see. Like Telluride, I feel like looked
Telluride's gonna be so spicy.
I said feisty.
Feisty. Sorry.
Also, you talked about the Puyo, and I do think Locarno is announcing next week.
Locarno is announcing on July 5th, so we will record our Venice draft before that, which seems reasonable, because we also might start getting like a Venice opening film soon. But yeah, we'll have
we'll have an update on what is at Locarno, and certainly that feels very in play there.
Sure. I mean, this has sort of been a discussion about like world premiere jockeying. I did read a little bit of the interview that I forget his name gave recently. Who's the TIFF guy?
Bailey.
I forget his name. Cameron Bailey. Yeah, he gave for I think IndieWire, in which he sort of described like the opposite of what we've been perceiving, where he's been like, oh, we've been a little less competitive with each other recently. I think the pandemic mellowed us out and we don't have as sharp elbows anymore.
I can see how he would think that, because he seems kind of happy to just be like, I just won't show a bunch of good movies, and it'll be fine because I'll have like 5 huge red carpet things. He just seems bad at his job. Everyone else, I think, seems to be still doing some strong work, and like also like clearly, I feel like Venice, like Alberto Barbero, was like kind of mad about Fabelman's. Like even publicly, he was like, "I didn't know it was even an option to premiere it at a film festival. I would have loved to get a heads up so that we could have the conversation." Yeah. Speaking of interviews, I did, just going back to Frumo, apparently Lisandro Alonso does an interview in the new CinemaScope where he reiterates that he is very pissed off that they put his movie in Cannes premiere. So check that out when your CinemaScope issue arrives or when it pops up online. But with that, I think we can cut back to Asteroid City.
Should we talk a little bit about its premiere at Cannes?
Maybe.
I guess we did.
We did, because Emilio was there.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just start by doing this is what the movie is, because if you're only, we're certainly not going to be cautious of spoilers, and if you have only seen trailers for this movie, there are certainly things you are missing.
Yeah.
Quite.
You've only been in the very center of the film. You haven't seen any of the hour layers.
Yeah. So but also you're missing a lot about what happens in that center. I guess the center of the movie is Jason Schwartzman. Augie Steenbeck has recently lost his wife, and he's taking his son to a junior stargazer convention, which is like a teen academic conference in Asteroid City. Scarlett Johansson is a famous actress who is there with her daughter.
Midge Campbell.
Yes, Midge Campbell. That's right. And they form a connection, as do their children. We meet many other people who are here at this stargazing convention.
There's 5 teens basically who are all winning.
And then their parents, and then
the military is there.
The military, scientists, and also
are like
a
hosting
group
it.
of
a musician group.
There's the musicians led by Rupert Friend,
there's the
and
hotel,
then there's
the hospitality.
There's a lot of
field
people
trip
in it.
Yeah,
It's very,
the hotel that Steve
expansive.
Carell runs, and then there's the group of children that Maya Hawke has brought. But the actual plot of this section, less than the convention, is that relatively early on, an alien appears and takes the asteroid, the titular asteroid of the city, and they are quarantined. But then the other thing that is happening is that the beginning of the movie is not this. You begin with Bryan Cranston telling you that Asteroid City is a play, and you were about to see... Yeah, you were about to see I forget what the word he uses, but I think an approximation of what it was like to produce theater in the United States in the middle of the 20th century.
Yeah.
So this play is written by Conrad Earp, played by Edward Norton, and we get some scenes. We get a scene where we see Jason Schwartzman's character getting cast, where we see Scarlett Johansson's character being convinced to return after getting yelled at by the director, who's played by Adrian Brody. And so, that is certainly not the bulk of the runtime, but is very, a lot of what's going on.
And
so
it's
that's
the
the
stuff,
sort
too... Oh, sorry. Good.
Go ahead. I was
just going to say
that's the sort of general shape
yeah.
of the movie.
And that stuff, too, the, like, Playhouse 90 stuff hosted by Cranston and all that, seems to be what most people's, like, takeaways are. Like, there's the stuff in Asteroid City, but I find that, like... And I didn't know about any of that stuff. I don't know about you guys, but I didn't know that was
I did not
movie.
either.
Yeah.
I
knew there was going to be something more just because Emilio was saying, like, there's stuff that they're not showing us.
Yeah.
Yes, which I had figured, but I thought it would be something else.
Right.
Yeah, and, like, you could see on the poster, like, Cranston and
there's some
Norton
characters
and
that are
Brody
black and
were
white.
black
I was
and
wondering
white,
about that, I figured some of it was, like, either
Yeah.
set in the past or something.
I was like,
future.
either it's a
definitely-
framing thing or, like,
Yeah.
maybe they're aliens, which they're not.
Yeah. He's very into
Ju-
framing
yeah.
devices lately, I feel.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, which is cool.
Sure. I mean, we just talked about Royal Tenenbaums a couple weeks ago, and like that
Sure,
is like a book that is
A book
being
checked
read
out of the
by Alec
library.
Baldwin. Yes.
Yeah, but the last 3 live action films all have very extensive framing devices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
doesn't Moonrise Kingdom even have a little bit of like the
Yeah,
Bob
Bob
Balaban
Balaban.
business? Yeah.
Well, yeah,
He
he's an
narrates it.
ersatz narrator.
Okay, he's
sure,
more
yeah.
just a narrator. Okay.
Right.
There's certainly no like. I mean, it has its, it
Sure.
diverts into certain stylistic flourishes, but it's definitely not like a
Moonrise-
true like
yeah.
structure piece.
Moonrise
like
Kingdom
Exactly.
is not its own work of art with its
Yes,
Exactly,
yes,
yeah.
exactly.
And Fox is
Well-
also like in the book too. He does that there too.
It is. There is actually a bit of it because like there's the mystery of like Moonrise Kingdom and like how it sort of gets washed off the map after the big
Right.
storm. That's a whole different. We don't need to get into the ins and outs of Moonrise Kingdom.
well,
And,
Great
like,
movie though.
Kingdom episode.
I mean, I think
One
it's
of-
his best. We don't need to.
I kind of underrated it for the longest time, and then I watched it again on a plane back from Finland last year or wherever. I was a long plane ride back from Scandinavia, and I was just like, I need like something comfortable, and I rewatched it, and I was like, Moonrise Kingdom is should have won Best Picture.
Yeah.
Honestly.
This is. I think maybe I'll take a brief second, if I may,
Yeah.
to set the record straight on the French Dispatch.
Wow.
a movie I watched yesterday night.
So okay, so
Yeah.
famously we had our episode, the France-tacular, where we talked about Bruno Dumont's France.
It's
and
4.5 hours
the French
long and
Dispatch.
still available.
And
for
not
listen to.
and not French Exit.
Well, yeah,
Which-
and we did.
yeah,
Well, I guess that we talked about that at NIF the year previous,
of course.
because it was part of that first digital,
Yeah.
festival wave.
Right.
And I haven't listened back. I'm very self-conscious about things that I've said on the podcast, and just I rewatched it. In my head, I didn't like it at the time. I found the structure a bit annoying. I had sort of since watching The French Dispatch at the end of 2021, rediscovered my sort of love of Wes Anderson. Realized that he's like, obviously, there's a lot of conversations about him these days. He's getting a new movie out. He is maybe like one of the last true American artists like making things on a grand scale. The fact that this is like put out by Focus Features relatively widely, like it was at my
I mean,
I do want to
AMC.
talk about this. Yeah.
It's Sunday when we're recording. It's done quite well, honestly. Which
Well,
is
yeah,
crazy.
but then so French Dispatch, I was very like put off by it, and I was like in my head, I rewatched Moonrise Kingdom later that year in 2021, and I was like, I didn't like this at the time, but now with some distance, yada yada, I've sort of recognized it, and then I've had since then my own journey with that movie, and realizing how truly beautiful it is. And then with French Dispatch, I was like, I need to give it some time.
Yeah.
Maybe 5 years, and then with this coming out, there's a lot of talk about if we were if you rewatch it and you don't like it, it's going to be really tough to sit through Asteroid City. And so I rewatched it, and I think it is flawed, but I think very obviously the technical craft. It's the same sort of reaction that I had on a rewatch of Isle of Dogs, which was derided at the time for many reasons.
Yeah.
But there is just something you can't deny about his craft at a certain point where it is at such a level that no one else is even close to operating on, especially in the American, like I mentioned already. But just what he's able to do with French Dispatch and his structure, is befuddling to me. It's I can't believe that I didn't understand what the sort of beauty of it was on first glance. But then I just realized that is Wes Anderson. There, you do need this sort of preliminary viewing to let the aesthetic wash over you, let everything that is just a fun thing or an interesting stylistic flourish happen, and then rediscover there's many layers to it. And that's why I think especially now with Asteroid City, most people like it, at least in my sort of my circles. But also, like Andy said, most people are seeing it again and again for some reason. There's and I think it is the peak of a current wave for him.
Yeah, definitely. The thing that I maybe I think I was a little surprised when I saw French Dispatch that people didn't go against the can reaction further. So then, I saw this, and I was like, oh, well, I like this way more than the people at Cannes did, but I don't know if it's gonna... And clearly there is more of a, push of, no, we love this movie, which is nice to see.
Yeah. It feels pretty unambiguously loved or appreciated. Even I think the most, minor take I've even seen on it has been, not minor, but, this is maybe not something I love. Even that was just but that framing device is just one of the most beautiful things he's done, and yada yada. There's a lot of appreciation even amongst people who aren't heads over heels in love with it, I feel. Whereas Cullen, you were saying Dispatch was a movie that I really love, and also for very different reasons in this one, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Sure. Yes. Exactly. Yeah.
But that was, I watched that, and that for me was a reigniting of my spark for him, which was kind of muted after Isle of Dogs, which I didn't like at the time, but I actually really find I'm quite fond of now. But Dispatch for me was oh, he's really communicating with himself on something that is special and something he hasn't done before, but on a craft level, I still think maybe his best. Crazy.
It's very dense. The amount of animation and stop motion and and he does it in Asteroid City as well with the introduction of marionettes and obviously everything that he does. I don't know. Where should we go next? Andy, you wanted to talk a little bit about how much money it's making?
No, not even that, but just how much of a big deal that the incoming release was. I feel they were really we're all in on this. We're really gonna market it. The trailer's been out for a while. I've been seeing it in a lot of places. My local art house, they are really hyping. They made a little special in the style of Wes Anderson's short to play before the movie that was Welcome to the Little, which is the name of the theater that they're showing. They're doing weekday showtimes all this week, which I think might be because of the jazz festival, but usually they don't have weekdays showtimes for movies.
Right.
Weekday mornings or afternoons or whatever.
Yeah.
I saw it at 10 a.m.
Right.
these movies make bajillions of dollars for art house theaters. Like every time he has a movie, AFI is like, and we're also going to show all of his other movies. I guess they haven't.
I mean,
yet, but they might
everywhere
still
has had
month.
that. Everywhere has been playing Moonrise Kingdom this summer. I feel we got it here at the Belcourt.
And in fact, when I went to go see it on Friday, I hadn't secured a ticket, and there was a sign up that said Asteroid City sold out. And I was like, oh, wow, that I wasn't expecting. Like, I saw it had come close to selling out on Thursday when it opened, but I was like, Friday, there's the Jazz Fest happening. There's probably some other, like, there's maybe. But it was this sign up, and I went in and was like, you don't have any single ticket left? And she's like, some lady, like, her friend didn't show, and she left this so you can have it. Like, so it was like that, like, and it was like a full house. Like, the whole crowd was, like, full. There was, like, a lot of audience response to it. It really did, like, it does feel like they decided that, like, this movie, I don't know if it's just because it has enough movie stars in it or whatever, but they're like, this is one that, like, we can sell to mainstream audiences, and it seems like people are showing up, and I don't I don't know what the long term of it is going to be like. I don't know how like mainstream audiences are really responding to it if you're seeing it like in AMC
I wanted to go
whatever,
see
like,
it at my Regal last night.
I
but the
saw
time
it at
didn't
a
work out,
Regal
so I saw it
last
at my
night
Iron House.
because I needed the reclining seat, and it was well attended, and
That's
it
good.
seemed to be a pretty engaged audience.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know why this one like is the one that is like really.
I think it's. I mean, I think it's like it's his.
People
first,
are ready for it.
He's only made. It's only his second live action movie since Budapest, which was similarly like a big hit. And I think French Dispatch just like. It was Searchlight, it was 2021, and they didn't have any interest in putting that movie out.
And and that's a kind of a weird, not
inaccessible,
but it's a
speech.
it's
tougher sell than.
And I guess like, and like Budapest was also like earlier. It was not. It was even earlier in the year than Asteroid City
February,
was, right?
yeah.
Right. Because he did the Berlin thing,
it was
right?
like April or something.
So and like I guess that's maybe like, and then French Dispatch was like in the middle of award season where there was like a lot of other art stuff.
A packed award.
I guess
season
he's
too,
right. It's just that he's like so distinctive that like when he has the room to stand out as like an art house thing and a more mainstream pitch, like people will come to it. Like when it is like when he's the adult movie of the moment, right? Like when he's the main option you have.
I would say that him being back in focus too is probably a big factor in this because what was his last release with Focus? Was it Budapest? It wasn't Isle of Dogs.
No, Budapest is Fox Searchlight.
Yeah. So I mean, it's been a minute. It might have been
Moonrise.
I think he was with I feel like he was with Fox Searchlight.
But it just feels like it feels like Focus was ready to get him back.
Yes,
I think.
And I mean, I think Fox Searchlight was working very well until
I do too.
Fox
until
got bought by Disney.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's fun. Like I had two sold out crowds. I mentioned I wanted to go see it in the Regal last night just to see what like that crowd was like. But I couldn't get a seat I liked at a time I liked, which is a cool problem to have for something like this. So I just went back to my indie and applause both times at one particular moment.
Wow.
Which moment?
Well, so people love the alien coming down, but like there's something about the saucer scooting off the screen to the right.
The spin around and then
there's something about that moment that is just like such a great release for people, and that's something I really love about this movie is that I feel like his haven't had in a minute. Even stuff I love in Dispatch, and I appreciate Isle of Dogs, is that like this feels really tailored to crowds in a special way. Like the song is such a like that's like made to watch in a theater with an engaged audience. In a way he hasn't had in a minute. It's very goofy. It's a very silly movie. Yeah, which rules. I love it, and I love that alien so much. Everybody does, I think.
Yeah, it's a very good design.
Yeah,
that was just like dead silence, just like
I thought it might have been.
The whole time, or just for that scene in particular?
That scene in particular. I mean, I guess I don't mean dead silence. I guess is a bad thing to say, but I guess just like everybody was just like
Right.
Yeah.
I felt the
You
same
could-
thing,
you
right? You
could hear a
feel
pin drop.
Well,
right,
and
you
so many
feel the
people there
level
are
of
working
focus
too,
increases the
yeah.
audience as everyone is like, what is about to happen? Like it really
Yeah.
is truly like
Yeah.
anything could happen in this
Yes.
moment, and you
Yeah,
like the audience is
absolutely.
like waiting to see what it is.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah. It really feels like it's his funniest one in a very long time. Like I laughed so, and I laughed at different stuff both nights too. Like it's just tons of stuff.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who are like just in it to be funny. Like Carell,
Yes.
certainly. Matt Dillon is just really funny.
Dylan
Dylan's
is
really
so good. They
Which
both
is funny
fit in
because
so well.
it does like you are like, oh, it does just kind of feel like you plopped Jack from the house that Jack built in this movie, but it's somehow not malevolent, even though
Yeah.
many of his scenes are with Uma Thurman's daughter,
Yeah,
which
he
I did not clock until the second
he's
time.
got that line I love. Like your I can't remember what it is, but he's like, your problem is an unrelated third thing we've never seen
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
Where he's like,
Yeah.
I've had 2 issues with this model of car. It's like, the first time it was a small problem. The second time it looks like that. And then,
Yeah.
like, the piece falls out. And then that, in and of itself, is like, they've got this animatronic little
Yeah.
contraption. Or maybe it's puppeteered. I guess, I don't know exactly.
It's
But
great.
it sort
though,
of
yeah.
just, it
It's
wiggles
great, yeah.
and steams. It's really funny.
Yeah.
So good.
And then he's like, there's a third thing. that, like,
Yeah.
you've got.
He's good. I think I'm so used to seeing Matt Dillon play like blue collar guys, which this is, but like I feel like he's not allowed to be intelligent very often. But if you're in a Wes Anderson movie, you're going to be intelligent, and you're going to be good at the stuff you do. And so getting to see him play that is like a nice little treat for a Matt Dillon fan. He's
Unless
so good.
you're like Rupert Friend, then you're very funny and you're very charming.
He's- He's so good. I'm glad that there was like when it was. I mean, it's maybe just whatever conception I have of
Yeah.
Rupert Friend. Where when I was like, oh, he's in a relationship with Maya Hawke. I'm like, and in my head she's supposed to be younger than she actually is in the movie, and like. There's obviously different things at play, but their stuff is so sweet, and he's so
Yeah.
funny and so
It's
charming.
so charming, yeah. And I love that he doesn't fulfill like. I love that he's got that little speech about the alien. He's just like you
Yes.
know he which is so funny and which is so sweet
he's-
and like not what you expect he's gonna say. I think.
Yeah, where he's like, he may not be one of God's creatures, but he is a creature from somewhere. He's like,
Yeah.
and so are we.
It's a really good-hearted movie. Like no one is.
Yes.
Even the alien stuff is just like we're just confused. Like the most violent thing that happens in the movie is Jeffrey Wright like holding his gun for a second when the saucer is coming down.
That, and then the standoff, the Schreiber, and
Which okay, yeah, I forgot about that.
but I guess that is
Exactly,
more
yeah,
like
nice,
that's like the
well,
the
but also they're
quarantine
doing
phase.
nuclear
Yeah.
tests in the background the whole time.
Yeah,
And there's the shootout.
and there's
whole
the
time.
shootout. So yeah,
it's
which,
bookended, yeah, by
and the shootout happens again, like right in the middle, which I forgot. And I
There's a
have
few, yeah.
no idea what it's about, but it reminds me of like so this is all staged, like this is all on stage. We're meant to be like as though we're watching it in a theater, and it reminded me of the shootout in particular, and the like explosion stuff reminds me of like sound testing. Like I used to put together audio for shows, both ones I've directed and other ones, and it's so fun to like put some shit together and be like, okay, this is how far away the gunshot should sound, or like whatever. And each time that stuff like that happens, it's off in the background. Like very rarely does he take you further into the distance, because this is a play and you're supposed to be like focused on these characters, so he can't like actually make you feel involved in the shootout or in the nuclear testing or like whatever. It took me a second viewing to really lock into how specific all of that stuff feels, and how like this is a word I don't really like, but moments that are very like metatextual or meta-theatrical, like there's the obvious one, like Cranston stepping into the frame, which is so funny, and I want to say
Yes.
this is what I want out of him. I really like want him to be doing
it's
stuff
his
like
best
yeah.
performance,
Yeah.
certainly in a film.
Oh yeah, like I mean he's
I mean, I guess other
tremendous.
than Isle of Dogs,
He's really
which
good
is
in
also-
Isle of Dogs.
He is great in Isle of
Yeah.
I
Dogs.
think he's really.
But the other moment
Yeah.
when Augie, Jason Schwartzman, burns his hand on the thing, and Scarlett Johansson's character,
She's like, he actually did it.
you're like, what?
Yeah.
You actually, and
Yeah.
it took me a minute to be like, oh, that's the actor in this scene.
Yes.
That's not her. That's that. She's like, wait a minute, you actually burned your hand.
And
the movie
The way
is
that
just
she like looks side to side also is like very like split.
Well,
it's so good.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I don't have like any kind of grand thesis about this movie, but it does like belong on a really special list that I think I have maybe talked about on this show before, but it's just, and it's happened a lot recently. Like Drive My Car, of course, was like this in very obvious ways, but also French Dispatch. Movies that communicate what like both making theater and seeing theater feels like,
right?
Because they're so different, and film doesn't have mistakes, right? But this is like there are built-in mistakes in this movie that are really special and really like to me quite tangible as someone who makes theater and sees well, I haven't seen a lot of it since the pandemic and since becoming a dad, but it's like I love that shit. He's so good at that.
Since you have said the phrase grand thesis, I will maybe now say I went in for the second time. The one kind of thing was I was like, I do not the scene towards the end where the actors are all saying you can't wake up if you don't fall asleep. I was like, this feels so central and it is so baffling.
It is.
I was not necessarily looking for I was not necessarily looking for a meaning. I was more like, because like I think I even read like Richard Brody translated a few quotes that Wes Anderson was saying in Kake du Cinema, where he's basically just like, oh, I'm not necessarily looking for everything to have a clear meaning. I'm fine with something that just works poetically. And so I kind of just went in being like, I would like to find more of a what the poetic into that scene is in this second time. And ultimately did end up sort of forming a grand thesis about the movie, which is that what it feels like the sort of overall shape of the movie is when you are creating art, you're communicating with people, and you're hopefully communicating with the people who you love, and you can't, obviously it's one of the only ways in which you can do that after you die, but you don't know what that's gonna look like. And so basically I think what the movie feels like is Wes Anderson giving this playwright Conrad Earp an opportunity to more directly help his partner through figuring out grief. And so that scene feels to me like Schwartzman figuring out that is what the play is, even though like that doesn't work at all sequentially. Like it's not a movie.
It doesn't have
like,
to though.
It's not a movie that's concerned with sequence in the same way that like you see like the play and the production of the play like interacting with each other in ways that don't 100%. That is what it feels like the sort of whole shape of the thing is to me, and how that scene sort of works.
Right. Well, you said something that I think like this really touches on, but I like and anyone who makes stuff, whether it's like theater or podcast or you write or whatever like making stuff makes you feel better about like everything else, and I think that like someone a really good friend of mine one time years ago, and it stuck with me, was just like, you know, when I write this, she was writing this screenplay that never got made or anything, but we did a couple read-throughs of it, and she was like, you know, just like doing this makes me feel better about dying, like very casually. And that's what this feels like to me, like whether it's about your own or somebody else. And he is so like almost casually obsessed with death. It's in every single one of his movies, except maybe Bottle Rocket, but even Bottle Rocket's got degrees
Someone
of
does.
it. But it's just like all of his movies are it's either directly in front of your face or far in the background, but they're all, and he doesn't, like, we talk about like grief and trauma and stuff as like buzzwords now, especially when we talk about like studios that have co-opted these very human things to turn into like, well, this is about this, so, you know, or Puss in Boots has a panic attack, so, you know, we're gonna relate to you by hammering it over the head. And he doesn't do that, really. He's never been concerned with, as obvious as he is and as non-interested, I think, in subtext as he is, and by subtext I mean like per character, not like, or for a character, not for the movie itself, because his characters always say what they feel and what they're thinking,
right?
But he is just like, yeah, it is just the most, like, two things are certain: you're born and you die, and they're just always there. And it's like when Augie is telling the kids about their mom, it's just, it's not a big thing at all, and it is, but it's not, because they have other things they have to do. And so Jesse, I really like what you're saying about like this thing that is not really in the movie, but is where like this is Schwartzman both on stage in Asteroid City and in this, you know, thing, this and as an actor. And
Right.
God, what's his actor's name is really funny.
Is it John something?
It's so fucking. It's Jones Hall, which is a really good name for an actor.
Yeah, that's great.
But you know, like the scene where he's just like, "Am I doing it right?" It is both like the concern of the actor. And also, Jesse, like when thinking about this, the way you put it, is like, am I doing it right? Am I serving the character right? But also, am I serving him right? This person who we don't see the full details of their relationship, but obviously they were important to each other in an era where men could not be openly in love, and so I that's a roundabout way of saying, Jesse, I really like your thesis on what this is.
Well, we don't see their full relation. I did almost get the impression that first scene we see between them is less them actually meeting and more a cover story created by Brody and Cranston, so that Norton could cast him.
Yeah. Have to say real quick, Brody is incredible in this.
Brody's so good.
He's really good.
Yeah, it is like, obviously you want more Hong Chow, but her little scene with him is so good.
She'll be back in another West.
Yeah, I'm sure.
All of the scenes...
it sounds like he's doing his next thing at the end of the year, which is crazy.
It's coming together. Do you guys? Sarah's the lead.
He's boom boom booing.
Oh right, I did hear
Sarah.
Sarah. That's so fun, because I feel like at one point Sarah was going to be in this.
Sarah was almost the Schwartzman part. Which I cannot imagine. I think this has to be Jason Schwartzman for a million reasons. Yeah. Sorry, Cole.
No, there's those scenes of Brody interacting with people, and even like his character being the director of the play, and you get that great scene with Johansson, who I also think is incredible.
Oh my God.
There's basically no bad performances, but there are like. It is something where it's like they get so much to do, obviously, and there's the small scene the scene that Johansson and Schwartzman have, the first one between their hotel windows, where she is like, "Let me do my scene for you," and it's like that scene in and of itself is, she's giving like a devastating performance, like the emotion on her face, everything is like. Just great acting, but then you have her scene with Jake Ryan, who's tremendous, on the train, where he's got like the note if she's sad and the note if she's angry, and she reads them both, and then makes him read the one if she's cool, and it's the letter from Brody's character, and the way that character interacts with the other actors, as someone who is not experienced in theater in any way, it's incredibly touching. The scene at the end where Schwartzman is like, "Am I doing him right?" And then it's just like there's this. I don't remember exactly what they say, but there's like a back and forth, where it's like Brody's just like, "Yeah, you gotta keep doing it," and like
it's
just,
like
keep hitting him.
Oh, Andy, go ahead.
That's okay.
I have a thing related to this.
I really want to talk about this scene because it's my favorite scene in the movie. Where because it's him, like how we get into that too is him being like, I don't understand why he burns his hand, right? He's like, I'm doing these actions that are required of me, but like I don't really like totally like I don't think I've nailed, like I haven't I haven't in the like alchemy of like doing a performance of an actor, I haven't like been able to articulate or like technicalize like what the steps are for my performance that lead me to these inevitable actions that the playwright have written down to me that I have to perform, right? And so and then he exits the scene, right? He like goes through the wall, the rock wall or whatever backstage.
I still don't understand
Brody.
the play. It's so good.
Right. Yeah. And I do think like, and then that scene with Brody where his, you know, he doesn't really offer real insight, right, into like why that happens. He just says
directors can only offer so much real insight. Right. You actually can't. Ultimately, what it is you have to say like you do it because it's in the script. Like that's ultimately all you can do.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not right. It's not either of our calls. Like it's in the script that you have to do this, so you have to do this, and like
right. Like, because emotion isn't like on a grid, you know.
Right, and we help each other get to the place where like we both feel okay with how and why that happens, but like that's our process and that's separate from this, and like this is what is written and what we have to do. And I do think like the way that it does sort of like illuminate the process of like character creation and art creation and all that sort of stuff of like you're sort of stumbling around looking for truth and you're not necessarily knowing how you get there, and you're definitely not even often or always going to be able to articulate how you get there or what the process is. Like it really is like it really gets to the heart of like what is taking art up a level, right? Of like from like exercises or from like whatever. Like it is like, well, there's always just going to be some unknown X factor that like you're going to struggle with and you're going to wrestle with. And I think like the way that scene, you know, is like reality breaking in the story of the play, and like, and then is that before the dream line?
Yes.
Or is that
after? So the way the sequence goes, like he exits the play, talks to Brody, goes to the fire escape. We have that, and then you find out Conrad died in a car crash, and then they do the dream exercise.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean,
it's the callback to it. Yeah.
Right. Right. The callback to it.
Dream exercise.
Yes. I mean, right. The whole thing is like, it's how it all builds as an examination of like, well, there's telling the story and then there's understanding the story and like knowing what the story means and all that, and how those things are separate. I think like seeing that articulated in a film like this, like it's not something you see a lot. I feel like of like, well, and I do feel like today so often we are so frequently like, you know, we live in an explainer culture of like what X means and what, you know, how these all add up to be this, or like I've solved this, right? People are always constantly solving art or whatever. And I do think like this movie is a beautiful articulation of like how like that is not what art is and that is not what art is for, and like art is the process perhaps of attempting to solve it, but if you ever come to a full conclusion, you have done it wrong. Like it is something that you're meant to continuously wrestle with as you continue as you continue on.
And he does this a lot too in other movies where like movies that are not, you know, theater within film, but like where he has like characters who do have epiphanies, but those epiphanies rarely actually, and it happens in the most minor ways too, like just a very small example, one of the movies we haven't mentioned but is one of my favorites of his, The Life Aquatic. Characters have little mini epiphanies all the time. Cate Blanchett especially has like several of them, and at one point when they're being attacked by pirates, she says, I need to find a baby for this father, meaning like I need to find a father for this baby. And characters are always having like little epiphanies the same way like we do all the time, but those epiphanies rarely actually, they feel good, and they're good to experience when you are watching them in movies, like in Wes Anderson movies especially, because they kind of help string you along to the next thing. But Andy, like you're saying, it's when you are like, there's no way one moment in your life can explain everything else. There is no way that like everything becomes contextualized because you figure out why you burned your hand, you know? But like you need to find out, and that's part of like what that is. And I just I have to say real quick, one of my favorite things that Adrian Brody does is when he's like punching the air. I'm doing this on camera,
Yeah,
but it's so funny
Yeah.
because this is just a quick little, like, something in my notes that I had to say. It's weird how Adrian Brody is like, he is such a confident presence on screen. He doesn't look like he should be. And like Wes especially, I think, is really tapped into, there's something alpha about that guy that you can't like you just cannot fully nail down. And in every one of Wes's movies except maybe Darjeeling, which I need to rewatch,
it's there.
Yeah. But like he's the bully, and like, I mean, in Budapest he's the villain, and he's such a jackass in his French Dispatch stuff. Although I think maybe that movie is one of its best performances. But it's so funny how he taps into that here, but also his innate warmth, which you need in a director, and he manages to be all these things that you want that character to be. And Andy, you were alluding to that conversation, but one of my favorite things, it's hard to keep track because the dialogue here is so rapid fire, but Schwartzman in that scene where he's like, am I doing him right, is like, I feel lost, and he's like, good, like, it's just and that's like what you're saying, it's all wrapped up in, like, I feel like, good, you should feel lost, because human behavior isn't calculated, and when it is, it's not, it's impulse is so important in your life and in art and in making art.
And then Schwartzman, it's like right after that, he's like, it's breaking my heart like every night, and he's like, it doesn't make any sense to me. He's like, I'm supposed to keep going, and he just goes, and it's the same rapid fire, and it, like, the way it breaks it down is so it's perfect.
I mean, I cannot wait. Sorry, I can't wait to watch this again a million times. That's all.
I mean, Brody's incredible, which is it's sort of like the weird part of the reception at Cannes, especially like when I tried to talk about it on the podcast. Is just like a lot of the
I can't really
talk about him in that.
Until people see it.
He's such an interesting actor, because he's like, a thing I've thought about him is like, he's never relaxed. He's always like, he's always either wound tight or he's like resigned, I guess. Where he's just like played out, and he's so incredible. It's like truly, I think, my favorite performance of the year, and it's like, did so much for me. And this movie, it's just like, it's also interesting because you're talking about its relationship to art. But when I was watching it the first time, I was mostly thinking about like it being about like self-consciousness to a certain extent, and how much, especially in the early parts when Augie is trying to talk to the kids, you see this constant wrestling within him of just like, is this even worth saying? And like the entire movie ends up being about that sort of struggle of just like, what is worth saying? Like, is every single thought you have a thing that's worth saying, or is some stuff just like, well, you just need to act a certain way, and like people have to figure you out like that. That is just a part of life that nobody can ever 1,000% communicate whatever they're feeling at any given moment, and you have to sort of put it together. The scene with Robbie is really good. I really like that little moment. I really like. A thing I thought instantly when watching the movie is just how much Augie looks like Francis Ford Coppola, kind of. Just like,
well, he looks extremely like Stanley Kubrick. There's pictures of them side by side.
That's sort
but
of.
I think the Schwartzman definitely those Coppola genes, you can't escape him.
He is. It's crazy that Rushmore was only 15 years ago. I have a lot to say about Rushmore.
No,
yes,
25.
Not 15, Jesus, 25, sorry. Well, still, Lord.
Dad brain, sorry. About, like, their relationship of Wes Anderson and Jason Schwartzman, of just, like, the journey they have gone on, and it's, like,
he's been involved in everyone's. He didn't do Tenenbaums or Life Aquatic, but he's been involved in some way. Ever since then,
and he was has a story credit on the 2 before this, or maybe even the 3.
Definitely Budapest.
Definitely,
I remember that.
It definitely Dispatch an Isle of Dogs. Too. So then maybe it is the 3.
I could not think about Rushmore during this, just because like I had this thought where I was like, it's before it's like it's like just a how, it's not like grief is like such a specific thing that it's only this one guy feels it, but like in Rushmore he's lost his mom, and in this he's lost his wife, and now he's the dad, Maybe it's just my brain needing to make connections, but he reminds me so much of Seymour Cassel. I think it's Cassel.
That's a good call.
Yeah, I mean he's like there's bits of Bert Fisher in him here, and he is doing something really that I love with the way he speaks. He sort of doesn't open his mouth very wide. He's doing kind of a tough guy thing. Yeah, he's doing like kind of a
well, and they reference it too, like he's doing like Brody's like, you're doing too much business with the pipe and all that.
Yeah,
like,
it's.
So the scene, the true like I mean one of the scenes that I thought was the most touching is the scene where he goes to like audition for Norton and like also talk about a guy who just throws heat in every single Wes Anderson movie.
Yeah.
Norton
so
is tremendous in this.
Yeah.
He's so gentle. He's like, I thought of Jimmy Stewart. I mean, there's the obvious sort of comparison there. But that scene where he brings the ice cream and then they eat it and then he like goes through the process of getting the stuff to stuff his shirt to make it look like he's got a bit of a belly. He leaves and like applies the beard and comes back, does the like the scene that is cut from the play, or reorganized in whatever way it is, and then like obviously they have their moment at the end where they embrace, and it is just like what they're both doing as part of just like acting in the movie Asteroid City is tremendous, and then also the layers of what Schwartzman has to do, and talking about Rushmore, a movie I rewatched in preparation for seeing Asteroid City, just because it had been a minute. Yeah. And, like, the impossibility of the Max Fisher character, and that Schwartzman not only, like, handles it with aplomb, but is maybe the best performance of the 90s. And it's, like, he's so unbelievably good in this, and then you think about, like, he did basically as good of a job as anyone has ever done with a performance when he was 18 in his first movie, or like one of his early movies. And it's like when There There came out, I was talking with
what a great movie,
past guest of the show, Jackson, about how Schwartzman is maybe like the best that we've got working, and like what he's been able to do throughout his career. It's so like. And that he's in the Spider-Man movie, and he's in the Hunger Games movie also this year.
I think you should leave.
Yeah, and he's in. I think
he's going to be in Queer with Daniel Craig.
Right,
sure.
I just saw that. That's crazy. Yeah.
I mean, but so it's nice that he's having like a bit of a thing again.
Yeah,
he's obviously so good in the Alex Ross Perry movies that he's in, and he's just an actor that I love seeing in like one of the best that we've got. And also, I think. They only started working together more recently, but Schwartzman and Scarlett Johansson have a similar trajectory. She obviously takes a different route and goes more mainstream with like the Marvel things. But it is two actors that started.
Yeah, she also has got a Coppola connection. When it really gets.
Yes, but they're sort of. Both of their career trajectories of like starting so young and just remaining in the American consciousness, like what's at play a lot with the two of them is really, really fascinating.
She's incredible in this. I think it is her best performance, period. And I think that she is specifically channeling some energy that she had in two movies I don't like very much from 2019 that she got nominated for.
Sure.
I like one of them a lot more than the other one, certainly, and I think, but I think she is really great in both of them actually, and does exactly what they both need. But in this, she gets to do like the sort of, she does a little bit of screwball stuff. It's not really screwball, but like the sort of zippy.
Well, she keeps saying that she's good at it, but she doesn't.
Yeah, she's a great comedian.
A gifted comedian. Hanks with that.
But she's really, and then in Marriage Story, a movie that I think is really brilliant. I just don't like it. But she is. So like worldly and well-rounded in that, and in this she's doing. I thought a lot about Michelle Williams during this, and I think part of this because she played Monroe, but also because who this is like partially inspired by. I Must Feel, and I think so I'm not going to talk about this that much, but I have this book here, Do Not Detonate Without Presidential Approval, which is like this collection of writings that Wes helped put together about like things that inspired Asteroid City, among them Altman's Nashville and Close Encounters, both of which you can really see in this.
Yeah.
But at the beginning, he talks about like how he wanted Monroe to feel like, you know, this is the era she was working. So, but I thought about Michelle Williams and this like sort of very casual, like hysterical sadness that she has. So like when she talks about like the grease being like, or the being like a shiner or whatever,
Right.
which by the way, I think the hardest this movie makes me laugh, besides the alien and the song about the alien, is when Schwartzman's like, God Zeus, what'd you do to deserve that? Which is so funny.
There's a lot of I think when they're doing the first, I forget what it's called, the what is it, the ellipsis in the sky.
Yeah.
When they're all like looking through their shadow boxes at it, and the kids, you just hear them like, all I see is the staple. They turn around, and like, gee whiz. That kid, I think it's the same kid who is like, because Dwight is the one that like is hanging out with the musicians and then writes the song
With those killer pipes.
Yeah. And then there's like the other sort of main kid of Maya Hawke's group who like leads them on prayer, and it's really
so
funny.
fucking funny.
I mean, all the kids, you mentioned Nashville. Obviously, there's so many people in this movie, and they each have their moments. The kid who keeps asking people to dare him to do things, goes on his whole journey.
I was gonna bring this kid up. This is Liam's kid, right? Schreiber's kid. Is that the one?
Yes.
I mean,
In the movie, yes.
In the character.
Yes. There's something about that kid's. This is the one who created the gun. Yes. His first off, his face is incredible. His voice is nuts. Like his speaking voice, just like he is. There. You can say this about a lot of actors, but he feels built in a lab for Wes to work with. He's so fucking funny. Everything he said made me laugh. But then he's got that scene in the desert with Carell and Schreiber, where they're talking about the land, which is also a really funny bit. And I can't remember exactly what he says, but he has this really soft, poignant moment before daring his dad to go climb on a cactus.
Where he's like, what's up with the dares? And then he's like, it's like I need people to like notice me. Or
Right.
He's
right.
So
and the punchline is them being like, well, all right, what do you want us to dare you to do? We'll do it. And then he's like, do you dare me to climb that cactus? And they're like, no, absolutely not.
Yes. It's so funny. That's Carell, where he's like, well, what's the dare? Like, we'll give you this one.
I mean, there's a lot of good moments of Schreiber, Hope Davis, Park, and just Carell around there. Just like all of those
drinking the vending machine martinis.
Yeah. I'm glad that Park is like one of Wes's guys now.
Yeah.
He is, for me, the thing in French Dispatch that makes it like my favorite. Like his bits with Jeffrey Wright are especially that like last moment they have are like. That's tremendously touching.
I mean,
anyway,
that's the great line.
That's the thing of the movie. That's
the reason to tell the story. Like, the was watching that yesterday.
Yeah, and I love that he just gets to vibe in this one. He doesn't do a lot, but he really is great.
Yeah, and it like reminds me of another line I caught yesterday in watching French Dispatch, which like sort of comes to my point about this movie, where it's like when Roebuck Wright, which is Jeffrey Wright, he says self-reflection is a vice best conducted in private or not at all. When he's being asked to be like self-reflective about why he writes about food all the time, which is a very beautiful moment. That's such a great moment in that movie. It does remind me of this movie, of just like of just how everybody doesn't know what they need, what is self-reflection and what they need to say, especially like that bit, the Johansson bit is it's the perfect part of the movie where she's just like, what, oh wow, the black eye. It's like, oh no, this is for the character. It's like, oh, what did the character do to deserve the black eye? It's like, no, it's internal. It's just like, even she doesn't know, like, should it be clear that this person is broken? Do I need to say this? Like, everyone is just so confused by all of it. It's just
there's also there's so many threads. The one I really love the triplet daughters.
They're
they're funny in a way that like it's funny in a way that Wes usually isn't.
Yeah. It's
where
very
they're
precocious.
like straight up jokes where
They're all witches.
the diners. Yeah, she's like, "What do you want, little princesses?" And they're like, "I'm a mummy. I'm a vampire. I'm a fairy." Like going through all of this, and then she's just like, "Okay, how about strawberry milk?" And it's like
The waitress, by the way, played by Deanna Dunnigan, famous.
Yeah.
Sure, and
Yeah.
the great scene where they use the payphone to call the school newspaper. The mom is Rita Wilson.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We figured out last night. That
So
that too
it's
was
very
Wes.
funny that Wes like brought. Amy Mullins, who is Rupert Friend's wife, is also in the movie somewhere. It's and so like it's kind of, I love that you hear all these stories about
how they're all like cloistered up in Spain or whatever.
they have, and I mean, and this was shot in 2020.
Right, it's COVID. It's COVID movie for sure.
Yeah,
and of course,
they were shooting it like during New York Film Festival. 'Cause
Yeah.
they did a Zoom
Right.
viewing.
Exactly.
There were a
And
bunch
so-
of them where-
and like the we don't need to go into, but obviously like the any movie about quarantine in the next like 100 years in our lifetimes will make us think of COVID, so there's that. But it does make me wonder if Colin Jost had been in this movie, who he would have played. Like I actually did think about this.
That's so cursed.
They could have had him like
put that out
one of the cowboys, right? Like that would have been really.
I hate to.
Those are
like,
all actually musicians.
I'm not on like
is-
a Colin Jost reclamation project. I do have a friend who works on SNL who says that he is the nice one of everybody there.
Sure.
Sure.
Funny, but
I mean,
anyway.
it's interesting.
does
that
make me
he's,
wonder.
like, as we mentioned with like both Brody and Norton, like he
Uh-huh.
and Matt Dillon, he's like good at like
Well,
like alpha guys. Weird.
Because he loves,
Yeah.
I mean, he loves like Keitel and like James Caan's and Bottle Rocket and Hackman,
Right.
obviously.
Which,
he
like,
loves
that-
these
yeah.
like gritty, method actors.
I wish.
Yeah,
Keitel-
that's
I
a
know that
nice little nod that Willem Dafoe, who's playing,
Yes.
has like a couple scenes as an acting teacher.
Yes.
His
I
last
hope
name
he
is
gets-
Keitel.
I hope Keitel
Yes.
gets one more with Wes because I think he's
Yeah.
so funny.
He's so
and,
he is the
Dispatch.
one he stands out the most for me in
Not-
Isle of Dogs.
Yes. Yeah.
He's
Oh
I
my
think
God.
incredible in that
He's
one.
so good.
I mean, he's so good in Budapest.
Well, yeah, he's great in Budapest.
Yeah, Budapest is one I was thinking. He's so funny.
We've gotten this far. I do want to say, we mentioned Rita Wilson. We have not mentioned the name Tom Hanks at all yet.
Well,
I
yeah.
don't think.
I was
No,
gonna-
yeah,
I mean,
crazy, right?
I was maybe gonna say that there were a few performances. That was the other thing that happened the second time. There,
We haven't
there
talked
were
about
performances
Tilda.
that I
Oh,
didn't like, but
yeah.
there were a few I was less keyed in on that I was more taken with the second
Hanks
time.
feels
and
like-
was
like
definitely
a-
one of them.
Hanks to me feels like, I mean, he's very good. This is not his best performance in the last couple of years, but he is
Yeah.
very reliable, and I think it's just a good reminder that
Right.
he is A, reliably good, B, can work with like any filmmaker. But also, I think I think that Wes should give him something else too. I think he is
For
very
sure, yeah.
good.
I mean, the
he
thing, right,
reminded
he's
me.
He's sort of in one key, like for the whole
Yes.
performance,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Well, he's in the Harrison Ford key.
Right,
He's,
yeah.
which is really funny.
The gruff, he's turned up the growl
Yeah.
in his voice.
Yeah.
But I do think like that first scene with him on the phone, I think is
Yes.
so good and so funny. That was, I think, the
Yeah.
biggest laugh my crowd did was the end of that, where he's like, "Yes, we're saying the same thing." That like I didn't.
Yes,
do.
yeah, where
Yeah,
he's
that's
like,
good. Yeah, and
He
his
gets-
stuff at the end with his last scene with Schwartzman's really
When he's like,
nice.
Oh my
And
god!
I do like
He
how
gets
he's
to
like,
do,
I kind of like being in quarantine here. Like
Yeah,
that's a
yeah.
good thing for him.
No, yeah, he's like I like the desert. I like aliens.
Yeah.
He gets to have.
Johansson.
yeah, he tries, and Schwartzman's like, oh my god.
He gets to have a couple of moments that for me are like I can't really pull them up out of my brain, but like when Wes gets really quiet on a Zoom with a character, where like they state just something very plainly. And I call these moments. There's a moment in Macbeth where Macduff says he has no children, which is just like not poetic at all. The most like straight thing he can possibly say about a situation. And Wes, a character who writes dialogue that is almost dizzying sometimes, will have these moments where he's just like, and I can't remember what Hank says, but Schwartzman's like stop trying to help us, we're in grief, which is really funny. And Hank's just like, it cuts to him, and it's just beautiful. And he just says really plainly, like, so am I. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
Or whatever the line is. And he's got a couple of moments like that that are really tremendous.
Yeah. I mean, I like their relationship, even if that
Yeah.
performance and character, their relationship is very interesting.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
like another thing that's it's like very interesting about Wes, where it's like the beauty of that relationship is that thing where it's like, yeah, he's gonna take care of them and him even if he doesn't like them.
Yeah.
And that's sort of very Wes's sort of intoxication with that sort of macho relationship of just like, yeah, these guys, they don't really need to like each other in whatever traditional way it is, but there is an understanding which is very comforting.
Yes. Yeah. I love that shot of Hanks. There's nothing else like in the movie, but where the fireworks are going off and you just see the back of his head. I think, I mean, it just feels really natural. I think I had read early on that his role wasn't that big, and it's not. Like, no one's role is really that big except for like Schwartzman and Johansson and like Jake Ryan. But I do. He feels like he's always been there, and there's a couple. Like I said that about Dylan. There's a couple of people who feel like they've just always been there when they work with him. I can't actually think of the last time someone worked with him where I didn't feel like. This doesn't,
I mean, rewatching French Dispatch, I was like, Chalamet sort of like, a lot of performances of that I'm kind of distant from, but his is the one where I'm like, I like him and I think he has good moments in it, but he also has the worst moments out of anybody, and I'm like,
I think that's fair.
Well,
I like him in that. I
adore him in it.
I said this when you said it. That is my favorite performance he has given.
Yes, it is. Yeah. That's not my favorite of the three stories too. So
no,
and it's the one I have the hardest. Even though it has the moment that probably like besides Jeffrey Wright and Steve Park at the end makes me cry the most, where the McDormand is talking
his parents.
His parents, but she's like, he's a boy who will die. He's not like a star, and that
all
that
the stuff
is devastating.
Post that is great.
Yeah,
him on the tower to like the end of that.
I mean,
gorgeous.
Speaking of Rupert Friend, I mean the play in French.
That's the best.
That is like
so good.
Among the most sublime things that Wes has ever put in.
I really love that Rupert Friend is like one of his guys now, because that's not an actor.
And he's in Henry Sugar.
Yeah, he's in Henry Sugar. He's not a guy I would have pegged to become one of his guys. But and then it's funny because in Henry Sugar, like Richard Ayoade's in there, and I'm like, oh yeah, he feels like he's been around, but he's not. It's his first one.
And Cumberbatch too is like
that's gonna pay off like a slot machine. I can't.
And I mean the close encounters thing is interesting because I saw so many people talk about it. Like that's like one of the first things I heard a critic say when as soon as the lights came up. It was somebody compare it to Close Encounters, and it's just like it is interesting Wes's relationship to like the sort of Spielberg magic, and I think people have written about it because it's like the moment with the alien is sort of there's a similarity to the moment with the fish towards the end of Life Aquatic, where it's just like. For a guy who is that much about like relationships and how people talk to each other, he does sort of keep coming back to these moments of people just being absolutely awestruck by something they can't explain or talk about. That is something that maybe also speaks to what the movie is about, which is just like something that transcends the need to explain it. Something that we all just sit there and get that it's a special little moment that we're all having.
A little bit The Wolf and Fantastic Mr. Fox also.
God, that movie is special. There's a lot of Fox in this one, I feel, too.
I think I
worked with Clooney again. I feel like
it's like obviously like kind of a punch to the gut anytime you see Goldblum in anything now, just because it's like we all know.
Sure.
I kind of wish the alien had been Clooney at the end, just because I think that would have been like a really funny bit. But he needs to work with George again. I feel.
I wonder if they didn't
the Goldblum bit is funny.
Possible.
I mean, it is. I don't know. I feel like I saw Clooney talk about how much he loved that. I don't know. But he should. There's definitely people who there are people I wonder about where I'm like, what's up with Luke Wilson? Like what's going on?
I've heard if you mention Luke Wilson in Wes Anderson's presence, he will stop talking to you.
Wow.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's like bad.
That's tough.
That's crazy. Owen too is like the Conrad Urban this like made me think of what Owen Wilson is doing in Life Aquatic, like the voice.
Sure, it's a little
Right. And I love Owen Wilson, and I think he could have done that just fine. But obviously, like the way you like what you're saying, Colin, is like how fucking good Norton is. Like just a
he's
king in this. Yeah, but it's
I was the just on Tom Hanks and all of his stuff with the girls is really funny. But he also, because there's like the bit of having the wife's ashes in the Tupperware,
Yeah.
and then the girls bury it, and it's like it's not Episcopalian or whatever. We gotta like we can't just leave her here.
Yeah.
And then like the way they sort of
for that, right?
the way they react to
bury
that, and
her.
eventually, they have the bit of the funeral there where he gets to say his words, and then he like has that moment where he just stands up and breaks a little bit emotionally, and like some tears start coming.
Yeah.
It's really great work for me.
And Schwartzman and Jake Ryan holding hands in that moment is really sweet too.
Yes.
Like it's yeah.
There is on the sort of like grand thesis of it, and like you can't wake up if you don't fall asleep, and the way that it is about just like you don't need to worry about everything or whatever. The beauty of you have like this in the play you have of Woodrow and Scarlett Johansson's daughter, who she's also great.
That kid is really good. Yeah.
But they have their little romance that like blossoms throughout the piece, and then they're like
Grace
debating.
Edwards.
Yes, she's great.
Yeah.
They're debating like what to put on the moon, because he's got like the technology of like I can put whatever image, and they're like it needs to say something, it needs to be this, and then Tilda takes him aside and is like, I can make you my mentor or my protege, like we can work something out, and like the way they throw around the phrase like celestial flirtation and like all these things. What do they say? It's like the cosmic something, the cosmic conversation, something like that.
Yeah.
But then at the end, they put their initials up, like it's a carving on a tree.
It's so good.
And it cuts to them kissing. And then, like, basically the last thing Jake Ryan says is, like, he won the scholarship money. And they're like, what are you going to do with it? And he's like, I'm going to spend it on my girlfriend. And I think it's so beautiful. It really, really touched me.
He's
and,
awesome. He's the part of 8th grade I still think about. Like, I don't think about it
great.
a lot, but he's so
great.
funny in that.
Big recommend if anyone has the Criterion of Moonrise Kingdom. The commentary on that one is Wes Anderson, Peter Becker, who's the head of Criterion, and Jake Ryan. And
That's
then
funny.
they call Schwartzman, they call Norton, they call Bill Murray, and like have these conversations. But most of it is Jake Ryan like doing bits as like a 12-year-old or whatever. And it's like he's barely in Moonrise Kingdom.
Yeah, he's not in a lot of it.
He plays one of the younger brothers, one of Susie's younger brothers. So it's funny that he like Wes is obviously drawn to him. He's got a bit part in Isle of Dogs. And his sort of crowning ceremony of being the big role in this. But he just like plays piano throughout the commentary. It's really crazy.
I mean he is another reason why I thought of Rushmore, because I did think about, especially weirdly, the scene where he has to read the letters to Johansson. I did think about like, is this a movie partially about Wes being like, is this what I did to this? Is this what I did to Schwartzman? Like, am I at fault for this at some reason? How did I shape this person?
Yes.
Yeah. It's I have to say real quick, just I mean she is one of the most treasured actresses alive, performers alive. But I just do have to say it is so nice to see Tilda give a normal person performance, but that is laced with like so much stuff that only she could do, like where she tells the story about why she's got the ellipses like permanently stuck in her irises. But it's like there's no when we think of her now, I think we mostly think of like a Snowpiercer shit with like the giant false teeth, which is like fine.
I mean,
like she's good at it.
We're obviously like she just did Eternal Daughter. She just did
more. Of course, yeah. She's been
she's
so
maybe
level
settled
for a
back
while.
down the last
which is
years,
great.
which is nice.
But this is like it's great to see her in just like a supporting performance be very good.
And there is even the little echo of Eternal Daughter where I think she missed the line is a misspeak, but I think she says it's something like I wish I felt like I should have had children, but
Yes.
it's not.
Yeah. What up?
The way she says it,
I
is
wrote
not
it down.
great.
I do have this.
Oh,
one.
you wrote
What
it
is the
down.
line?
Great.
She says sometimes I wonder if I wish I should have,
Right.
Yeah.
which is really.
Yeah.
But there's
Yeah,
also
I mean,
the misspeak at the end where Schwartzman's like, "You're the actor, or you're the wife who's supposed to play my actress."
Yes.
When he's talking to Rob.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's really good.
So that
Yeah.
Amelia, you were talking about Close Encounters, and it's in the book, and like Balaban's in it and all that. I have to say that like so I made a little list of movies and things this reminded me of, which are some are obvious, some are not. Like there's a little bit of local hero there, but it's like not even in an obvious way, just like local hero, so meandering in a way that like this feels like it is also. But there's a movie this made me think of that I wasn't really expecting, even though there's like the obvious alien connection. And it made me think of Contact, like ever so slightly, but not because of anything to do with the alien. There's that moment in Contact, which like spoilers if you haven't seen Contact, but like the big emotional crux of the movie is the scene where she reunites with her father, but it's not her father, it's an alien who has adopted her father's memories and can say what he would say, basically. And it's a really beautiful moment. It's you know, small moves. I think it's like maybe the scene of Zemeckis' career. But what that reminded me of specifically is this Margot Robbie scene where these two like people reunite who were meant to have a scene together in a play, and that's their connection is the play. Their connection is not this beautiful thing these characters were meant to have, but she's like able to say those lines to him the way the character would have, and he's able to respond the way that Augie would have. And I think that scene being placed where it is like that's an authentic reaction from him. The same thing he was just telling Schubert Green, like am I doing him right? And he's able to have that authenticity there. And why that reminds me of Contact is like you get your epiphanies and your reactions and stuff from things that are not actually happening to you the way that we do when we watch movies or plays or reading books or listening to songs, where it's like my reaction to this is based in the invisible connection that I have with this thing now and this thing that is happening. And so even though that is not his wife, and like in Contact that is not her father, they get to have something they feel like they need to have, even though it's not real, but it is. And it's so good, and it's so like what theater is about, and why like I love the phrasing. And I got it wrong initially when I came out of the movie. I was like, God, when he says, am I doing it right? He doesn't say, am I doing it right? Am I doing him right? Am I doing right by him? And that specificity is so important, because like it's the reason like actor, like one of the like tortured thing that like any actor has to deal with is like this notion of like, am I honoring this person who doesn't exist? Or maybe they're playing like a real person or whatever, but the real person is not what matters. Like when someone is playing, like I think of JFK and how JFK is like top to bottom, like people played real people. It's like just a massive movie. And it's like, yeah, you want to like honor the real thing that happened, but what you really want is like this story. Like, am I telling this story right? Am I doing right by it? And I love that. And I cannot, like, I know we just talked about him a lot, but I cannot say enough good shit about Schwartzman. Like, there's no world, I think, where he gets a nomination for this, because, like, Jason Schwartzman doesn't really get Oscar nominations.
And also,
he's never been a part of that conversation.
No one has ever been nominated.
Yeah, Wes
for an
Anderson
acting
performed.
Oscar.
No, and I think it will not happen. I do think that this movie will like make a showing of. I think it absolutely will.
Probably.
But if anyone does, I think it's ScarJo, and I don't think that's happening. So it's
Yes.
But he is just like so unusual in this. Like it's such a strange performance, and he is just excellent.
Yeah, the way that him as the actor, where it's like every time they show him, he's got like a turtleneck pulled up over his face, is very funny.
It's so good.
And I love that. I do love the Margot Robbie scene, and like, just I mean, like you're saying, the way that it like what it represents. But then there's also just like a classic Wes joke of he gets his catharsis, he gets his epiphany, leaves, and then Matt Dillon is like, "We were supposed to have a scene," and it's just like another moment's happening. Like
I love that
keeps
Dillon
going.
just also is that guy off screen too. He's so
Sure,
good.
yeah.
It's really good. I love those moments
Yeah.
where you make the connections, but you don't get a lot of them. But like, what are the differences between like when we get taken out of these moments of like, here are the actors who are playing the characters that we've just spent time with, and some of them are like the line is not thin at all, like with Matt Dillon, like it's but then it's like Rupert Friend opens his mouth and you're just like, oh yeah, this guy's British. Like it was just
him
great.
being British in the
It's very
Outside
funny.
Story is good.
Yeah,
That is good, and it's also interesting how it just like skips over part of Asteroid City where it just like jumps ahead at the end to just get to the aftermath. I mean also what I would like Jack mentioned things he thought about when watching the movie. It's like obviously Close Encounters has Bob Balaban, it has Bob Balaban, it also has Truffaut in it, who is obviously a huge Wes influence.
yeah.
And especially like the black and white, like the breakdown of how can you dream about falling asleep. That is very new wavy, though. I thought I thought less of Truffaut in that, and I thought of Jean Cocteau. I thought of Orpheus and that sort of film, that sort of level of surrealism when watching it.
Yeah, I was thinking he's not a filmmaker that I have a ton of experience with, but my sort of superficial connection I was making was Bergman, because there's shots where it's like their heads, like the shot of Matt Dillon screwing in the tiny piece to the car before it breaks, like just the blocking of that. His head is so huge and so close to the screen. And the part that he's twisting is so tiny. It really is.
At the very beginning, when it's just like a lot of like comedy about Asteroid City and its construction, I did think of Tati a little bit of just
there's a bit of that.
The sort of very constructed comedy.
Yeah.
The movie that I thought of when you mentioned Cranston, obviously he's great. I kept thinking of Anton Walbrook in La Ronde. As he sort of like guides the movie along, and the scene where he in La Ronde, where there's like a sex scene that's about to happen, and it cuts to Wahlberg using scissors to like cut that section of the film out when Cranston, Hope Davis and ScarJo are like having their scene, and Cranston pops in like in color, and he's like, "Oh, am I not in this part?" and walks out. I thought of that.
That scene really.
And then sort of
that was.
It is crazy.
Yeah.
That's the moment that I most struggled with afterwards, where I was like, I feel like that's just sort of there for the gag and like doesn't really.
but
It kind of is.
Yeah,
there's like
yeah.
a Looney Tunes propulsiveness to it. Obviously, there's a Roadrunner.
Oh my god, I love the fucking
obviously
Roadrunner.
the setting recalls the Roadrunner.
Sure,
Coyote,
Yeah.
But then they're also
they
just
say
like
there's
the
Coyotes
cartoon
present.
mushroom cloud. And
Well,
like,
that, but like these like the sky is like
Right.
Looney Tunes
the
sky colored.
right,
Like it's
the
It is
on ramp that's to
doesn't
nowhere
mean
that like
That's so good.
or they're like the sign is like this was built by mistake or whatever. Don't use it. Like,
I think the setting and like specifically going back to like America and going to like that sort of setting does him very well.
Yes.
There's a shot of I don't remember exactly where it takes place. I think it's like right before Carell like hands out the sparklers and then the little martinis, where you just see like everyone under this awning that is like lattice, and the way the shadows hit everybody, I'm like, it's just like a very like Americana. You just like feel it, like it is just like oh, that's one of those things that's just indelible or whatever.
I think Wes tapped into something when he finally started making movies that were explicitly period pieces, which he didn't really start doing until Moonrise Kingdom. Because I remember when that came out, and some critic was like, "This is like the first time a year has ever been like has been really specific about this." And it's not been in all of them since, but that's obviously explicitly a period piece. Budapest, of course, is, even though they don't say the year. Isle of Dogs is futuristic, but which I kind of love about it. I think he should. I would love to see him do some kind of like neo-futurist thing again, like that. Maybe live action, like a Buck Rogers type of thing. Not that specifically, but like that kind of motif, because I think it really would suit him well. But then again, and obviously in Dispatch and then this, and he is a guy who is kind of nothing if not his influences and how they coalesce. And I love that you're saying, Colin, like that Americana is like something that's so important to him. And one of the most obvious parallels in this is how much Conrad Earp is like kind of a conflation of the playwrights Tennessee Williams and William Inge, who wrote a play that I love, but I understand the movie is maybe not very good. I haven't seen it, called Bus Stop, which I saw a tremendous production of in college, or at least when I was 20 and I was seeing my friends do it. I thought it was great. But that's, the movie had Monroe. It's about characters who are stuck on the side of the road. And then Tennessee Williams wrote a play that I find quite confounding and doesn't get done a lot for a few reasons. Namely, it has an enormous cast. But Camino Real, named after the highway of the same name. And this is very much that. It's like characters who are on the side of the road, in the desert, like things are reality and fiction are kind of blended. A lot of mirages. No characters have like mirages in this. I think it would be funny if they did, or not funny if they did, but like the movie itself kind of is a mirage. But it's I love that he is jumping into, because he loves theater and he loves playwrights and stuff, and several of his characters are playwrights, but he's working in a specific area of theater that I feel like he hasn't quite, even though like there's something about the motif of like a Southern playwright that feels very Wes Anderson to me. So he can actually do that.
Yeah,
cool.
I think I maybe even have mentioned on the podcast at one point that I do think Hong Chow did an interview where she mentioned that they got connected because he went to see John, the Annie Baker play that she was in.
Yeah. Sure. Man, speaking of Annie Baker, I really hope her movie comes out soon. Starts playing anywhere soon.
She might have a movie and because I'm hopefully will be I think I'm gonna try and see that play right before TIFF. Just stop off on the way.
Yeah, I mean, I hope because I just want to see that movie very badly. Anyway. Yeah,
the movie. Yeah, also very. It would be crazy if it was at TIFF also. That would be very nice.
The some other people that I think are very good, just while we're shouting out specific scenes that we maybe haven't got a ton on. I think every sort of, he's such like an oddly shaped guy, but every cut to Fisher Stevens did make me laugh, especially when he did like the mummy walk when he's like when he pretends to be asleep. But Tony Revolori, I think, is very funny.
Yes,
he's very in the pocket, and like in a similar way that he really stuck out to me rewatching French Dispatch. I think he's great in that, and I think he's also very good at the. Jeffrey Wright, I mean, obviously, he hit the big speech that he gives at the begining. Where,
when there's all of a sudden the second microphone.
Yeah, when he walks forward, it's so funny.
It's so good.
And I mean, the way that this movie experiments with sound as well is completely like
right. Well, yeah, we should talk about the Desplat score too, because there's like not much,
but
it's like
so
really that. I mean, the obvious like the main one you walk away with is the theme from the alien ship, right? That's like
right.
Well, I mean,
of course,
it's basically
but then there's also
the score,
there's the little just like tones that he plays during the title cards with the act and scene numbers, and he uses those as a counterpoint to the main theme when Schwartzman walks off the set, which is so beautiful.
Yeah, well, if you listen to the score, each sort of piece, I think, starts with the same exact, like, or at least a small version of the same, like, beginning.
Right.
And then, like, the way that each piece expands for what the scene is really fascinating. And I this more than most movies that they've collaborated on, I'm wondering, like, how does he communicate with Desplat? How does Anderson like, because he's such a hands-on, obviously everything is to the like the inch of like what he is storyboarding, what he's writing, and I wonder how much like he, he's a big soundtrack guy, obviously, and like what he brings there, and like what Desplat like brings in parallel with the score or with the soundtracks. And this, I'm like, is he like? I just would love to know like how involved he is with the writing of everything, and like like what he wants it to sound like. I'm sure he has ideas, but
yeah, I do.
There is the scene where he walks off and is like having the confrontation with, or not just the conversation with Brody. There is like the way the organ will pop up. It just it's a very rewarding re-listen. The score,
and I will
even
say,
though
like,
it is short.
The way that it is integrated into that the first Alien scene, like, which we sort of talked about a little bit, but it really, like, it's the first hint you have that something is happening, right? Is that you're like, I'm noticing the score more than I had been or whatever. And like, and then you see the one green light appear in the box. Like that whole sequence, the way it builds and the way the score does sort of imprint itself on you and create that mood of like rapt attention and that feeling of like, I have no idea what is about to go down and like, or how is this alien going to move? Like, what is he going to do? Is he going to speak? Like all these questions and stuff. And the score really does just sort of set the perfect tone that does like enrapture you in those like whatever it is, those 2 minutes of screen time that it takes place over.
And then he poses with the little
meteor,
or the asteroid, excuse me.
That's another big laugh moment, for sure.
Yeah. Everything about that is so approximate and good. Like I really feel like there's something about the way I know I said this earlier, but just he kind of knows he's got you, and the timing is just so good. And from the moment the feet step out to the moment the saucer zooms away, like the pose is something I've been thinking about a lot, just because it's like this thing that is. So another movie I thought about a lot, and not just because of the UFO stuff, was Nope. But also because also
I mean, there's the Americana, there's like all of the cowboy shit with Stephen Yeun.
I also think that both of them are, and I don't have time or words to go into this, but I both of those for me sort of communicated something about my climate anxiety that I am trying to work through. This unknown thing that is actually we can explain in real life. We can explain quite well, but it's very scary. But fuck that shit. I don't want to talk about it. It scares me. But it's so like the moment where he poses is kind of the moment that it becomes a Wes Anderson movie, because or the moment the alien is like a Wes Anderson character, because like that's just that's the thing that links them, and they have found common ground even though they're scared and they don't know what this is. It's so good.
And the picture is funny.
I wonder if like Goldblum did reference work for the movement of the alien.
I wonder. I mean, it is very spindly.
I did because before the movie came out, I did read an interview with like his Wes's animation guy, and he was talking about like he did work on both this and Henry Sugar, and he said a couple interesting things there. I don't remember them exactly, but it did sort of get me in the mindset when I started watching Asteroid City. So like, so when is the animated thing gonna come? Yes. And the crazy thing about that scene is like it took me longer than it should when the alien comes out to realize, this is the stop motion animation. This is like, because he blends it very well, and but it also is like surreal in a very interesting way. So it's like you don't even think about like how this is happening that much. But it's a really good moment. I don't know.
There's another scene that I really love.
This movie is so dense.
There is so much. It's such a like I truly, when I watched it and I was like, I don't know what to make of this, really. Processing it with other people I think helps, which is like the best thing you can hope from a
and kind of what the movie's about too, is like processing things.
It is. Things you can't I've been saying it's like the first movie that like is playing in wide release in a bunch of theaters that I've just gone to see and been like, oh, this is like confusing. I don't understand a bunch of stuff.
It's great.
And in a good way, that like it's super rich.
But the scene that I also love is that we talked about a little bit, is the first sort of like Conrad Earp has this scene in the play that he can't figure out. He's trying to like he wants everyone to fall, like all of the characters to have a dream. A dream experience, like collectively, like he needs all of them to have these like moments while they're asleep, and then Willem Dafoe's there as Salzburg Keitel, who's like he's this great acting teacher, and like obviously Dafoe is such a guy who loves theater and like acting, the craft of acting.
Exactly.
and there's just like a few little things. Like, again, I do not have any experience with theater. I have not really done any acting, but just what he does feels very like a guy who has just gone through the sort of the acting classes, the acting exercises. He's done it all, and has a sort of casualness about him where he's like, Conrad, you'll have a dream and like come up with this. You'll wake up and have this.
Your pages.
Yes,
Right.
and he's like, Brody, or whatever.
The way he is
you'll
able
wake up
to instantly like grab the ball and run with it from like Conrad being like, I'm not sure what I'm really looking for, and he's like, okay, we're gonna do that. Like that is like very acting teacher of like, yes,
Right.
like we're gonna
and
like,
then,
well, because he says like, he's like, sleep is not death. We're thinking, we're like breathing, we're doing all this stuff.
Right.
You can like meet your dead grandma. You can be wherever you need to be, and it like that. I was already like, awesome.
Yeah.
But then he's like, you'll wake up with pages, and then he grabs Brody and he's like, you'll wake up with a hangover, and it's just like Brody just like sort of smiles, and it's like it is very just like the presence of someone who is very knowledgeable and like has this casual air about him, and that little joke that he just has to take is like very emblematic of that to me. And Defoe, he's just so good. Like, he's such a comforting presence in it.
Few moments, you very much get like, oh, it's really important to this community that this guy is around.
Yes.
He's great.
He so that scene where everyone snaps into the like how to be asleep, that, and then the final like moment of you can't wake up if you don't fall asleep, and repetition are so emblematic of every kind of like acting environment, theater environment I've ever been in ways that like get parodied a lot. It's very, well, okay, so that's I am thinking like of like how things like SNL have parodied that shit so much, but also there's a degree of truth to when they do it, because like SNL is all a bunch of like theater freaks and stuff, but it's kind of hard to mess that thing up as long as you're not playing it as disingenuous or like or mocking, because you have to like, because it's such a private thing to be in a theatrical environment. And
I mean,
it's the difference between performance and creating. Like Andy was saying earlier, like the performance, the final thing is what you see, but then there's everything you had to go through to actually make it. And so like Andy, you were saying Meisner, right? Like the repetition, like over and over again. But they talk about burning the hand. It reminded me of So I'm sort of like hot cool on Barry, which just ended, but there's something brilliant about, which I don't remember who watches it, so I'm not going to spoil it, but like the season 3 finale is covered head to like, people were like, oh, the show kind of got away from acting exercises, yada yada, but like that whole episode, the season 3 finale, has characters repeating shit all over the place, which is like what acting is, like trying to convince yourself that you are something, or at least that you can convincingly play something. And so that final, like, you can't wake up if you don't fall asleep, is like, almost feels like they're trying to convince someone of Jesse had a great explanation for this earlier, but I love that. And then there's the messiness of the like, okay, I'm gonna on the count of 3, you're all gonna like this, the way it used to happen for me is like you'd be an animal or like some shit, or you'd be old, so like on the count of 3 you're all going to show me what that looks like, and they all just do it, and a lot of them are just like, and then someone who I think is Fisher Stevens in the front just gets up and does like a sleepwalk.
Sleepwalking,
and it's like we don't get to see that stuff a lot when you're like translating theater to film, because film is not about always showing you the process. But theater is, and so he blends those two so well. And Colin, you were talking about Tony Revolori a few minutes ago. The shot that I think is maybe my favorite shot in Wes Anderson's career is when Tony Revolori and Benicio del Toro top out. When Tony Revolori's sitting there, Benicio del Toro comes up, puts his hands on his shoulder, I think, and he walks out. And I'm like, anyone else would just cut to Benicio. Anyone else. But in that moment, he wants to show you this, like, the way like these two guys are playing the same character.
He like kisses him on the head, right?
Yeah, no, that's what it is. Yeah, and it's my favorite shot. I can't remember what happens, but I love that. And this feels like it has so many elements of that. It really, as much as people talk about like Wes's artifice or like emotional hollowness, whatever, which I think is unfair. But we I don't have time to get into here's why you should love Wes Anderson. You do or you don't. But he has really pulled the curtains away so much the last like 10 years, I want to say, to the point where he wants to show you how all this shit is made. You can't see the strings on the Roadrunner marionette, but I bet you could if you really looked. Like I bet they're there.
Sure.
And I love that. And I love that he wants to invite you into that process.
I mean, and it dates back to Rushmore. Like, it's all about him making these plays that are, you know, the play at the end is so extreme in its setting, and like there's so much that I didn't remember about Rushmore, where it's like, you know, it's got all its sort of here's what month it is, and it's like on red curtains, and then the curtains pull back, and then you get the scene, and they do that a bunch. There's obviously so much that he's doing in Rushmore that echoes here.
Well, and go ahead.
No, please. I was gonna go on something else.
Sure, and I feel like I talked about this a little bit in the Franstacular. Like, you really do feel like that no matter how small the collaborator, like Wes Anderson really values like every single person who works on his film's input.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like you like even like the closing credits, I feel like have more care taken in like really like highlighting people who like helped him make this thing together, like than normal closing credits do. And like I've talked about like how he gets like these incredible, like wonderful, like huge actors for like tiny bit parts because of like how great it must feel to like be the center of a Wes Anderson.
On this. Yeah.
Right. How great it must be to be the center of a Wes Anderson frame, even for like a couple of shots, and like how much he must value the collaboration, no matter how small of an impact you're making. Like, you really do feel that.
The thing I was thinking about where there's so many people in these last two Wes Anderson movies that I was just like maybe even out on. Like Carell is a person where I'm just like, what the hell has Carell done decently in such a long time?
Was like a last minute replacement for Murray
because
like
it was
Murray got
Murray, and Murray got COVID. I have heard the COVID thing is a cover for him dropping out because of the Aziz stuff.
Yeah,
like it's one of the two. I believe both.
Yeah. I don't. Yeah. I don't believe it.
I think that after Dispatch,
I think he was uninsurable.
Yes, I think that after Dispatch, I love Bill Murray, but he should maybe not be in anymore because he got the most fitting coda at the end of French Dispatch that he could possibly have.
Which this would have maybe been the thing to do, is just give him like a comedy relief bit, and I'm sure he would have been good. But I'm glad it's Carell.
I mean Carell is and like Emilio, you were just saying, like, to go back to it, like Cranston is like, this is what he's made for, man. I mean, he is like, he's great.
One fish burned away from a last flag flying.
Oh my god, yeah.
Don't tempt me with a good time.
But imagine you're like Hope Davis, and like I would say most people know you because you played Iron Man's mom in a flashback at this point, or most young people know you from that, and you give her like a great scene with ScarJo.
Sandy Furness.
Yeah, exactly. So I was thinking about this during the Succession finale. I was just like, every single one of these actors could be in a Wes Anderson movie. And like everybody in Succession could be a Wes. It could be in a Wes Anderson. It's just a matter of time, I feel. Like J. Smith Cameron should be in one of these. Really,
you should bring back Cox.
Cox is so good in Rushmore.
Oh my god, he's so funny.
He's so good.
God, he's one of the worst students we've got. He's so funny.
Another small performance that I think is very good. Ethan Josh Lee as Ricky.
Yes. Oh my god.
Really stands out.
I'll take it all the way to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, his sort of outburst at the government and like what he does when he calls the friend.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a great character.
Yeah.
I mean,
and
I mean, now that we've talked about the other four of the kids, I'll say that I saw Sophia Lillis in Heroes of the Fourth Turning last fall. Yeah. Which was great because like the character she's playing in that is like at a like reunion of college students, so she's playing like 35, and so I was like, is she just playing younger than she is here? And it's like, no, she's like 21 now. She was just playing old in that.
She has not really registered for me until this year because I think she's also quite good in the surprisingly great D&D movie. She's very good in that.
She's
really good.
She's all right in that. I think I've said that I only think Michelle Rodriguez is good in that movie. But she's in she's got the Dustin Guy Defoe movie that's her and Sarah and Hannah Gross that's coming out in August. I'm excited to see that.
Yeah. You guys might.
I don't know if we've really talked about Maya Hawke, who I had not.
Oh, she's
I don't
great.
think I had ever. Yeah, like we mentioned her. I don't think I had seen her in a movie before this, so I was just like,
I've seen her
whatever. I
once
guess
then.
Maya Hawke's also in it, and like, yeah, she's great. Really, yeah.
I've seen her in Fear Street, the first one. That is the only thing I'd ever seen Maya Hawke in.
She is. Stranger Things is below her pay grade. She's good in it, but it's yeah.
Sure. Oh, sure. That's what the thing is.
Yeah. You guys might be able to hear my baby in the back. He just got back from his outing.
Okay.
Yeah.
We
should wrap
up.
It's
I could talk about this for. I also just like missed you guys, but I could talk about this movie for it's so fucking long. I really just love it.
There's a lot going on. I'm sure we'll continue to talk about it throughout the year. But yeah, it's. I mean, right. I'm excited to hear what other people could continue to say about it. I think, like I said, it's one that you are compelled to revisit. So I'm sure I will revisit it. And
yeah.
Our friend, a friend of the show, Kevin, last year remarked that Armageddon Time, James Gray's film, was one of the movies that inspired the best writing and like conversation that year. And I feel like Asteroid City already, it's just like it's a great one to discuss, and it's like it's a rare thing to have like so much to say,
It
really
there are
does
pieces
feel like there are pieces on Asteroid City I've read, like I think Adam Naiman's piece for The Ringer, which is like not completely positive on the movie. He has issues with it, but I think it's a very good and interesting piece on.
Yes,
on
I think Bilga's piece was, which I was told not to read until after I saw the movie, really dives so well into why all these things blend so well together. And I was glad I read it like an hour before we started recording, and it was like, this is such good writing. It really has inspired like excellent writing and conversation. It's hard to imagine what he could do next. I mean, we know he's doing this movie he's doing with Sarah. I don't know if it's like actually been like talked about much, but it is a father-daughter movie with Sarah as the lead, and I am I'm excited to see what they can do together, because I think that's gonna be a great pairing.
And we haven't talked about that. We found out that Henry Sugar it's a backwards Buster Scruggs, because it was billed by Netflix as it's going to be an anthology, and then they ended up being like, no, it was always one movie. Whereas this one, they were like, he's making a movie for us called The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar, and he's like, no, it's a series of short films.
I don't know if this will stick, but I had heard that was a little bit of a Small Axe situation where you can watch it as a feature. Well, you can't watch Small Axe as a feature, but it's like you could watch it like a Buster Scruggs, or you could watch it like a Small Axe, and it'll either be like all one thing, or because the official title of the book is The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar and
six more
others or whatever. Six more.
Right.
Thank you, Andy.
I have it right behind me. You can go grab it if you want me to.
I wish you would read the whole thing
He's
to
been
me.
very clear. He's like,
Henry
Sugar is like longish, but like 37 minutes, and then there's several other shorts.
Right.
I'm excited that he's adapting something again, because I think he's very good at it.
There's some interesting stuff in that one. There's one that's about like shooting a swan that's really dark. Interesting to see what that is.
Yeah. Just so you guys know, I had the air off this whole time because the air picks up on mic really strongly in my house. And when you get my file, you're gonna see the air just
kick in.
on.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we're wrapping up. Let's do special presentations.
Oh yeah.
Who wants to start? Anyone?
I'll
go
first.
Please
ahead,
go.
Tyler.
No.
All right, I've got a trilogy. We've got 3 episodes that we're coming up. So I've got the Harrisburg trilogy. I'm gonna start off with. So we've got the nice light introduction to the trilogy here. I'm gonna specially present a pretzel with everything bagel seasoning on it.
Sure.
I had heard of this before. Like, I think they have it at the Alamo, where I had to go to see this for the first time, and I was like, that's maybe a little too much. And then we got it at this restaurant in Harrisburg, and it is just so good.
Yeah.
Because and part of it is like you don't, just like any everything bagel is gonna be pretty good. Like you can just get one from Panera and it's good, but like you very rarely get the opportunity to get a nice warm bagel.
Yeah.
And when they serve you a pretzel, they're gonna be serving it to you warm, and so you get that with everything.
Sounds great.
Good.
I love
Everything bagel seasoning is great.
It's great.
Yeah, it's one of those things that we all do. It's sort of like having its bacon moment, where we all do love it, but we don't need to, or
exactly.
a pumpkin spice moment even.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's good. It's great even. We all agree. We do not need to stake our personalities on the fact that we like everything bagels.
Yeah, which is why I think I was a little skeptical of
that's a great
the premise. But yeah,
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
I mean, I love soft pretzels so much. Pretzel and cheese are the
Yeah.
best movie
Yeah.
theater snack.
Yeah.
that was the
yeah.
other nice thing is that they serve you want both cheese and mustard, but often the cheese is gonna overwhelm the mustard because either the mustard's just like there's not much going on, or it's like really sharp, which is nice, but you don't want much of it. This one was a pretty sharp mustard, but it also had some honey in it, and so
Yep.
really,
That's key.
It was
really
perfect.
Go.
Yes. I was just gonna talk about pretzels a lot more.
We'll do it in tomorrow's cold open.
Yeah. I maybe have talked about this movie in a special presentations before, but it is one that I thought of a lot while watching Asteroid City, and it's Joe Dante's Matinee, which has similar, stylistic. It's dealing with nuclear bombs and like living near like a military base producing them,
Right.
in like a desertish town, but then there's also the element of the magic of the movies and that where John Goodman is like, I forget who he's based on, The Tingler. What's that horror movie?
Oh yeah.
It's William Castle is his name, the real guy who would like put up like fake bats or like mummies or whatever to like have people sign waivers to like scare people, and that's John Goodman's character is like a peddler. But then there's also this very touching and like straightforward played child romance between our main kid and like a girl at school who's like angry about the government and like the bomb and worried about these things that everyone was worried about. And the way that it handles it is really graceful. And even like Matt Dillon reminds me of that what's the guy, Dick Miller, is that his name?
Yeah, Dick Miller.
He's in all the it's sort of that type character.
You just said the name of the documentary about him. That guy, Dick Miller.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think a great movie in its own right, and also a great companion piece to this.
Yeah.
Andy, Emilio?
I have two quick things. One, I would like to shout out, because this is a episode on a new popular release that I suspect will get a lot of listens. If you haven't listened to our episode from last week, I would really like to just encourage people to go do that. I was very proud of what we were able to put together with that episode with my old friend Emily on both the current writer's strike and the film Norma Ray, and I think it's worth listening to.
Great episode.
Thank you. Second, I saw All That Jazz on the big screen. We've talked about this movie in depth, but I got to see it at the local rep house, which is attached to the George Eastman Museum. It was introduced, and there was a Q&A with Sean Belston, who worked on the restoration with like the cinematographer and all that, and so he told some great stories. And I do think like it was my first time seeing that movie, one of my basically my favorite movie on the big screen, and always worth doing that. If a movie you love is playing on the big screen, go see it. That's what I got. Emilio?
So, I've actually been watching and reading a couple of things, but I did lock myself into plugging something that I had written in the group chat on the spoiler bars earlier this week. So my plug this week is...
I didn't open it. You told us not to.
I read it before I read anything else, so I know this.
My plug
I saw
this week
spoiler bars and clicked.
is
Go ahead.
oven roasted chicken. I've been cooking for myself a lot lately, and I've been, just making a lot of different stuff. Not really being that adventurous with recipes because I don't have a lot of ingredients at home, and I've been sort of too busy to go get some. So it's basically just like cooking a lot of protein, and we didn't have an oven in my house for a long time. Well, we had like a stove, but the oven broke, and it took a long time for us to get an oven. So I had not just like made oven roasted chicken at home, and boy, is it just a very easy thing that just hits. Just a nice little chicken thigh that
buddy,
that
awesome.
Butter and herbs on there, yeah,
just like some seasoning, some herbs, and it's like a little pink on the.
Whoa. Maybe not thighs are a little pink.
I guess I meant like brown. I guess I meant like dark meat. Sure.
I know what you meant. You order the chicken breast rare, and everyone's like, guy.
Yeah, I forgot to turn on the oven.
Oven experienced chicken. I just set it in there, pull it out 30 minutes later.
Yeah, when you turn on the light, that's what's turning on the oven.
Yeah.
But just it was really good, and I really liked it. And so shout outs to oven roasted chicken.
Yeah.
great.
I'll plug the other thing they've been watching some other episode.
Yeah. And then Jack, if you have anything, you don't have to.
I've mostly been like I haven't really watched a lot in the last couple of weeks. My baby relaxation activity is Tears of the Kingdom right now, but I do want to shout out a book that I started reading a couple of weeks ago. It's a book that's been on my list for a long time, and it was finally on sale on my Kobo. So shout out Kobo.
Shout out. Love Kobo.
Yeah. The book is called Meet Me by the Fountain by Alexandra Lange. I think it's Lang actually. Lange. And it's like a cultural history of the mall. And it is just one of the most relaxing things I've read. I love the mall. Like I could go on about the mall, and people are surprised to hear that sometimes. Because I don't know why. I don't know what about me is what seems anti-mall.
It's too commercial, man.
Yeah.
But I really love, like, every year, you guys know this, every year I make like a massive like holiday mix and share it with people. And like I love commerce, I love commercialism. It like runs our lives, and it's flawed and crazy, but I love it, and it's built our world. And this is like really such a cool dive into like why the mall became such a phenomenon to people. How it might be dying slowly for obvious
100%.
reasons. Yeah, and it's just like you just don't go fucking hang out at the mall anymore, and it's really soothing and great. And then there's a game I want to shout out real quick that I've been playing to sort of offset the stress of Zelda. And this game is like it's a sprite game from a couple years ago. It's like a side-scrolling like beat 'em up, but it's not really that. It's called The Friends of Ringo Ishikawa. And I'm just gonna read the plot of this game because it's both like a River City Ransom like Double Dragon fighting game, but also a high school gang leader, Ringo Ishikawa, trying to live through his last autumn before graduation, period, with his best friends. And a lot of it is just like walking around these environments, just like looking at lakes and stuff, and then guys will show up and get in a fight with you. But it's really soothing and good, and it's always cheap on Switch or Steam or whatever you play on. Really calming. I think the only person here who would like it is Emilio, but still, it's like it's been a good like. Oh, Lewin's up at 3 a.m. and he just got back to sleep, but I can't sleep. What am I going to do? Activity.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my other
always
thing
a
is,
good bet that I won't like a video game.
Yeah. And then my other thing is I've been listening to the Asteroid City soundtrack on a loop. So
That's
that song Freight Train, which I didn't know before, is fucking great.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah. I would love to have time to play video games right now.
It's my time is between the baby and playing video games. I guess I work some too, but that's all.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, with that, thank you again, Jack, for being
Yes,
gone.
of course.
Always a
Thank
pleasure
you,
to
guys.
have you.
Anything personal you want to plug while you're
Yes.
here?
Any social media that you want to point anyone to?
I'm on Twitter somewhere. I forget
Sure.
the name. I'm on Blue Sky now, but I don't use it.
Whoa.
Jack, I gotta follow
really-
you on Blue Sky.
You do. Of course, you're on Blue Sky. I am too. I don't know why I said, of course, you're on Blue Sky.
No, it's
I don't think
correct.
I don't think I have anything. Find a charity that you really like and donate to them. And
Of course.
I'll tell you guys what. I really one day would love to do a sequel to the Allison Williams episode. I don't know with who. I don't know what actor.
Yeah.
But that was a lot of fun. I still think about that.
I think we've sort of have tried to brainstorm it a little bit. I don't think we've landed on anybody,
Yeah.
but one
It's
will
got to
come
be
for
like
sure.
the right person, you know.
Yeah.
I mean,
but
and credit to you all. Obviously, like I wasn't part of that, but we were early on the wave of Allison Williams.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
pre-Megan. It was
Yeah.
pre her comeback.
Pre her being
Pre
on
the sort of
CBB
girls-
that time, which was when she was
Yeah,
on CBB.
the renaissance that girls is having right now.
Mhm.
We sort of, called the shot.
I assume
When
it's
we
the
all
most
love
downloaded
I believe it's-
episode in the show's history.
It starts
still-
when we all love Sharpstick.
I
right?
believe it's still our pinned tweet. The list of
Yeah.
directors Allison Williams should work
Yeah.
with.
Wow.
Listen, she's welcome on the podcast.
Oh,
anytime.
absolutely.
And now
Yes.
she likes doing podcasts.
She was on Jake and Amir's podcast back in 2013, so
Okay.
Sure, yeah.
A
she's
decade
always
ago.
loved it.
Yes. But no, that's it. Thank you guys. So this is a good. I'm about to
Yeah.
go do an event with my baby. And
Awesome.
Baby
yeah.
event.
Well, so he was in the NICU for a couple of weeks, and they invited us for like a reunion, and I was feeling a little like, do I want to go to this? And NICU is, for those of you who don't know, is where your babies go if there's something going on when they're born. So he couldn't come up for
Sure.
a couple of weeks.
Oh, I did think you said Navy, and we're doing a weird thing.
No, that would suck. But I made peace with it. I'm just like, no, this is actually all I get to see these nurses again, and thank him for helping my baby and stuff. So it's gonna be nice.
Nice. Love it.
Great.
Yeah, I'd like to
Well,
put
with
being
that-
a dad. Be a,
Yeah.
I'll have to look into that.
Yeah. If you want to follow any of the podcast's social media accounts, we're on Twitter at Can I Kick It. We're on Letterboxd and Instagram at CIKIPod. We're on TikTok at Can I Ticket. If you want to email us anything, you can at canikickitpod@gmail.com. If you want to donate any money to us, you can do that at ko-fi.com/CANNESI. And then if our theme song is by True Related, who's on Spotify and SoundCloud at True Related. And if you want to follow any of the four of us on Twitter, Andy's Andy T. Germ,
Or Blue
I'm
Sky.
Clatchley. Emilio's I'm Laugh Alone, and Jesse is JCP Glick Weber with 2 B's.
And with that, I will release our audience.
Bye.
Bye.